outside some something, $2,000. That's yeah. Not good. Since we're great.
Yeah. I just know. I want to get. That's not. Just stored. You try to. We'll start the captain's. That's any trouble. That's also. And then. It's a race. I like the little. Standing shot. What's that? Almost every year I get home. Yeah. She knows that.
So it's. The over. Clay tile. So red clay tile. Different countries of all just.
That's why.
Yeah.
Good, how are you?
Oh, good. We're on the top side. It's like all hard on it. Right now.
That tile, I think. From chunks it out.
Yeah.
We're not. Colorado. Up to Vail.
It's 5:35, I'd like to call a meeting to order. If you could join me in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Moving on through to the consent agenda. Brad, is there anything you want to clarify?
No, nothing along those.
Entertain motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda. As presented. Okay.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as presented. Any further questions?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Motion passed 5-0. Nothing under public comments, or are there any public comments? I guess I should say instead. If not, moving on to new business. Item 1, ordinance number 2147 MIH project rezone.
Yes, so this is for the property that is West Liberty Park. Currently, that property is zoned A1. We're going from A1 to R3. This is only going to be for the right around the 3.5 acres. That's for that for the project itself. There was a planning and zoning commission meeting where they had talked about where this was considered, and they recommended this for approval. The reason we had to wait so long is there's a 14-day protest period after the planning commission meeting. That time has passed without any protests or anything like that. So so my recommendation is to approve ordinance 2147 for the rezone of the city of property located West Liberty Park from A1 to R3. And also Jason Hoskinson is here from BT Consultants, if anybody has any questions about any of this process.
I have a question about the rest of the land. Are they still gonna farm the rest of it?
They are, yes.
I'm just curious.
Make a motion to approve ordinance number 2147. approving the rezone of city-owned property located west of Marine Park, A1 R3.
Second.
Been moved and second to approve ordinance number 2147. Any further discussion? Any public comment? If not,
All in favor?
aye.
All opposed?
Motion passed 4-1. Item 2, MIH project preliminary and final plats.
So similarly to the zoning, we had to have a preliminary plat for the project as well as a final plat. Jason, would you like to come up and kind of explain the process a little bit? Probably better than what the guy can.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioner. It's Brad Witch and Jason Hoskinson, Engineering PG Consultants. And yes, the preliminary plat and the final plat are, well, the preliminary plat is the document that kind of shows the outline of how the subdivision can be broken up, the intended location for utility easements and what utilities would be in those easements, just kind of the whole layout of the ground, contours, shaping. And then the final plat, kind of breaks down, just looks at the specific lots, and that's what would actually be recorded at the county at the Register of Deeds and splits out the different, defines legally the lots, the 8 lots, and then transfer of land can happen after that. So it's just a typical planning process that step by step you go through in cities. So yeah, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have with the 2 plats, preliminary and final plat.
So is the rest of the land, is it actually gonna have lots that we can sell later, or will we have to pay to do that again?
Yes, well, let me back up. It's gonna remain one big lot. And so if you want to split it up in the future and sell more lots, you would have to replat or go through another platting process, replatting that lot. And we set it up that way mainly because we don't know what that could look like in the future. I mean, we tried to provide a general idea of where it could head and what it could look like. But that would require another platting process in the future and rezoning to whatever that use is at that time.
I was under the impression we were doing it all. This is a lot of money. I mean, I'm just saying, it was $80,000, right?
77, yes, that's correct.
I mean, that's a lot of money to do 3 acres. And I was under the impression the whole thing was gonna be, we weren't doing the $80,000 just for the 3 acres. It was gonna be for the whole property, so we could develop it later.
Yeah, part of that was also for some engineering costs for utilities and things like that, but from the beginning, it was going to be focused on doing the final plat for the 3.5 acres and kind of a concept for the rest.
That's kind of my understanding that since we don't know what we're gonna do with the rest of that, whether we're gonna go with more duplexes or larger lots, it was feeling. It would be hard to move forward on what else we can do with that. Until as a commission we decide what to do, but we've got to get this 3 acres.
I'm just saying it's gonna be more expense for later, so. I was hoping that 80,000 included everything. And that's kind of what I was under the impression of. That, hey, we're spending this $80,000, but it's gonna be for this whole area, not just for this small development, but the ship sailed at this point, so.
Conceptually, we've kind of laid out how the subdivision could be sewered, the water system, potential lot layout, street layout. It's just the risk you run is, if you go ahead and split it that way today on whatever we assume might be the lot sizes and whatnot. If 5 years down the road, you go to sell those and they want it different, you have to replat it if it needs to be different. So you have to go through the process all over again. And it becomes more complicated at that point because then some utilities might have gone in and then now that's in the way. And so, yeah, conceptually, it's kind of shown for the whole thing. And then like Brad said, the construction plans and the detailed lots that we're going through in this first phase is that initial 3.5 acres.
I was also reading in there that we're going to assume the road after this. responsibility for us.
That's correct, yes.
We haven't done that for other people in town, so I just thought that was a little much. You know, we have one resident here that said he's already replaced his road to his duplexes twice. So, I'm sure it's too late, but, you know, in 20-25 years, we're gonna have to pour another road out there for them. It's, not very many houses, so just.
Any other questions? I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the preliminary plat for the Villas of Beautiful Maples and in a separate action, approve the final plat for the Villa of Beautiful Maples project and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign the necessary document. Pardon me?
Does that need to be in two different?
Yes. It needs to be two different. Okay,
For- do the first-
want me to start over again?
Motion not preliminary.
I would like to make a motion to approve the preliminary plat for the Villas of Beautiful Maples.
Okay, is there any public comment? Any further discussion from the commissioners?
What would it cost to do the rest of it? I should have asked that earlier.
You're talking about, do you want to, well, it could vary greatly depending on whether you just want to do the plat and only the lots, or if you want to do the rest of the streets and the infrastructure build out. I don't have an estimate on all of the infrastructure build out for the rest of it, but what we're at, I think we're at about 750,000 roughly for the sewer, water, street for this initial 3.5 acres. And, you know, you're probably 5 to 10 times that for the rest of it, so. And typically when developers are looking at that, you're gonna look at, okay, what are those costs? What are the value of the lots that I can get out of, how many lots can I get out of it? Can I recoup my costs? At that point. It'd be significant, yeah.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Been moved and second to approve the, preliminary plat for the Villas of Beautiful Maples. Don?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Motion passed 4-1.
I'd also like to make a motion to approve the final plat for the Villas of Beautiful Maples project and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign the necessary document.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and second to approve the final plat for the Villas of Beautiful Maples. Any public comment? Any further discussion from the commission? Don?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Motion passed 4-1. Are we still gonna table the e-bike? Or,
I think Dave's got some information for you. Ultimately, since we're not gonna make a decision, we're gonna have a discussion. I think we're kind of, both of us are kind of curious what the commission's looking for before we bring something back. So I guess we don't need to update it if we want to have some discussion of bicycle for it.
I think some of the big questions that we have is how comprehensive we want to be here, because we have so many different things we're talking about. We have a skateboard ordinance, that's what we think. But now we have motorized skateboards, and we have motorized scooters. We have the skateboards with one wheel versus regular skateboards that are motorized that can propel you pretty quickly. We have 3 different classifications of e-bikes that we have to tackle as well. And we also have the issue with the smaller vehicles, those razor type side-by-sides that I know we want to discuss, or you guys want to discuss as well. I was speaking to Philip Brad, who spoke with Mr. Delaney this morning, thinking that perhaps we should reach out to some of these other agencies like Overland Park, Johnson County, Lenexa and see what kind of materials they have on this, as well as any clarification stuff we can get from KHP on exactly definitions and whatnot, and try to come up with the very best ordinance, overall ordinance, which covers all these things, as opposed to throwing one out and then throwing another one out and having to change it and do this several times. I think we would probably ask, be indulged to be able to get that material together and be able to bring something substantial to you as opposed to piecemeal it. That would be my suggestion. I would think that the staff would agree with that as well.
We have a city ordinance now on the work site utility vehicles now. That we registered them at the PD.
We do, so we've spent kind of the last week or something compiled, so all these things are governed by, I don't know how many different areas of the law. We're kind of trying to put together, and we started this before this got put on the agenda, like an enforcement manual for the road officers, so they can properly identify the vehicle for one and know what the rules are pertaining to them. Yes, we have a worksite utility vehicle. It's the same one as the golf cart ordinance. It's from a long time ago, before the city was full of them. At the time we passed it, they were meant for farmers to drive them from their house to the farm. So the ordinance only allows you to drive it from your garage by most direct route to the city limits. Obviously, that's not happening, so we'd like to get an ordinance put together that, I guess, better fits what's happening in town. The golf carts you can drive anywhere but First Street and Oregon Street. Micro utility trucks and worksite utility vehicles is the same way. There's some state statutes that apply, local ordinances apply. And so we're trying to get them all in like one document so the officers can have one resource when they find a 14-year-old driving a motorized bicycle of some caliber down the street. They'll be able to look at the rules and see what they are and know what they're doing. So I know Tom had reached out to Brad about the e-bikes. I know Brian's reached out to me about the utility vehicles, not the ATVs, the UTVs, side by sides. That ordinance probably needs to be updated as well. So I guess that's what Dave and I were kind of looking for tonight, is kind of, what are you guys looking for as it pertains to e-bikes and utility vehicles? We can bring back something, I think, that better fits.
Well, I don't want kids not to have fun. But I know I've seen these e-bikes fly by my house doing better than 30.
Well,
And the kid doesn't have a helmet on.
And so-
or anything.
And that's the difference too, because e-bikes by law can only go up to 28 miles an hour. If they go over 20 miles an hour, you have to be at least 16 years old to drive them. If they're faster than that, then they're either a motor driven cycle or a motorcycle. And, this memo we started putting together, it's called 14 pages at this point, just trying to figure out what the vehicle is to start with. So, now that being said, we have police power in the city to create laws for the safety of the public, and we can change the state ordinances, or I guess further restrict the operation of these vehicles within the city limits. So, but you're right, if it's going over 30 miles an hour, it's not a bicycle. It's
Yeah, that, sidewalks, I've had a couple people come up
And-
to me and say
And
they're just
Once we get-
dangerous on sidewalks.
yeah, once we get
things
this
like
figured
that.
out, we have to do a better job of. It's illegal, unlawful to ride a bicycle on the side. It shouldn't be on the side. We haven't been enforcing this forever, so we need to get the notice out to the public to show them what the rules are, and then enforce the laws that already are on the book state. So.
And then some are just like dirt bikes. They're not even, or like electric dirt bikes.
Yeah, and some of those require a license as well. And some of them are just illegal to have on the road.
I think right now it's just so broad that people don't know
Sure.
what they
Yeah, and the law,
can't do.
right, the law on e-bikes changed last year, and the entire state of Kansas is trying to catch up to it right now, because the nature of these vehicles has outpaced the law on it, so.
Well, I know I've got some of my sixth graders who think it was pretty funny. I mean, who've been pulled over on their e-bikes, and so we need to give our police officers some more teeth to go with it. Cause there wasn't really a whole lot they could do, and kids' autos. I mean, they're sixth graders, they don't have a brain yet, so.
But I guess for the purposes tonight, what I'd like to do is sometime next week, we should have this thing finished up. And we can get a report to you guys, or what the memo would look like, so you would have like a better understanding of what these vehicles are. And what the rules are that pertain to each class of them. If you're looking for like helmet requirements for e-bikes and things like that, they're not required. But if you would like to have helmets required for e-bikes, that's.
I
something
just-
you can do.
Yeah, for under 28 mile an hour, correct? To be considered an e-bike.
It's a class 3 bike, you have to be 16 years of age to drive a class 3 bike, so. Yeah, there's 3 classes of e-bikes alone, so it's a difficult enforcement mechanism. Certainly to begin with. So that's kind of when Dave and I thought, what are you guys looking for as far as. If you want a more restrictive ordinance, but you really don't know what the ordinance is saying right now, so. And we don't have any specific ordinances on bicycles, there's a state law and the uniform, the standard traffic offense code for Kansas cities that we've adopted.
I'd like to be able to see individually what the ordinances are that, for the UTVs, et cetera, but also, like Chief had mentioned, Lenexa, Topeka, this, I'd rather see us look at a city that's comparable in size. Because here you're gonna have a lot of worksite utility vehicles, you're gonna have a lot of farmer vehicles coming into town.
Yeah, and a lot of these cities. Let's face it, they have a tax base, they can widen the roads, put in bike lanes and things like that. We
Right.
just don't have that. That kind of funding, or we don't have the room on our streets to do that anyway, so, and I can understand that, that would give us a chance to maybe see if there's other smaller towns. That have these kind of ordinances put together, but like I said, we just wanted to know. Like, if you're looking for helmet requirements, or if you're looking for rules of the road as far as keeping these vehicles off the sidewalks.
Rules of the road, I think, is first and foremost important thing.
Yeah, the bicycles, e-bikes, motorcycles, UTVs, all of them should all be following
And
rules.
the only, so this is what I found out by doing, the only vehicles you can have on a sidewalk are segways, hoverboards, electric assisted personal mobility devices, is what they're called, so.
I also had somebody approach me about golf carts, he said that he had done some checking, and found out that you had to be 17 years old to drive a golf cart. Now, I
You do,
found that interesting, that you could be driving your car.
well, state law requires you to be a licensed driver. We had put in the age of 17 when it was passed, it was before my time to pass the golf cart. But and the registration is required in the city, insurance is required, there's rules, so.
Yeah, and I have seen kids that probably weren't even teenagers driving golf carts.
When, the class 3 e-bike as an example, can get up to 28 miles per hour. Many of you have been on a bicycle at 28 miles per hour, probably going up a hill, and you ate it.
Yeah,
You know
that's
exactly
right.
what's gonna happen to your skull if you hit the ground. So that's why some of these places prohibit, certain ages driving those kind of devices, and also some e-bikes is a pedal thing, other are throttle thing, like a motorcycle. So some agencies say you can't even have a throttle one because it's just so similar to a motorcycle. The 28 mile per hour limit or 20 mile per hour limit is just, it's not existent because you just get on the throttle. So these are things that we have to.
Is
Like
it-
to you as well.
Is it easy to tell the difference between the classes? I assume with class 3, there's 3 classes.
No, not at all. But any e-bike manufactured after January 1st of 2023 is supposed to have a visible label that defines it and classifies it in one of these classes, so. Whether the manufacturer is complying with Kansas law on that, I don't know. We really, like I said, it's pretty new and we're digging into it, and there were some incidents earlier in the summer that caused us, I'm sure, which is the same incidents that caused the commission want to talk about some of these things. So, and then, like I said, with the UTVs especially, at WSUVs, the worksite utility vehicles, if we're looking at expanding those to like general transportation around town, we can do that as well. They're prohibited right now on First Street, and that's a state law on Oregon Street by city ordinance alone. Golf carts wouldn't be able to travel west of 12th Street anyway because of the speed. Also, west of 12th Street is pretty dangerous for slow moving vehicles with all the heavy truck traffic that seems to roll around out there. I know people might want to drive them to Walmart. There is an alternative on Iowa Street, you can go all the way out there. But I know like if you wanted to go park in front of Rainbow, you would have to park outside the street and walk around the corner. So we can look at an expansion of those as well.
Well, I have a couple things. I mean, my take on all this is those electric bikes aren't cheap. You know, their parents are buying them for a reason. Some of them are $1,200-$1,500. Let's let them be parents. We don't need to be parents of the kids. That's my take on it. Like, we don't need to make a bunch of stipulations. And a parent buys a $1,500 bike for them, and then all of a sudden we put the hammer down and they can't ride their bike in town anymore. And those bikes are very hard to classify. They're hard to look up. A lot of them have, you can't ride if you're under 13, and that's for the reason the state makes laws. So I don't know if we need to get involved with that. I can tell you myself, if I bought a bike for my kid and the city gave my kid a ticket for not wearing a helmet, I'd be pretty upset because I know I'd be the one paying it. And ultimately, I mean, me as a parent, I'm supposed to be making sure if I want my kid to wear a helmet that they're doing it. So that's gonna be my standpoint on it. I just don't think we need to get overly crazy on this and make it impossible to enforce. Parents need to be able to be parents, and we need to stay out of that.
I don't think we need to be overly crazy, we just need some basic rules.
Right, but I mean, when I read through some of the documents that we have already, it's gonna be very difficult to determine what's what, and again, some of those are very expensive, you know, even your one wheels are $1,500, so, you know, the parents are buying them for their kids, and they're saying it's okay, so that's not our place to really say, you can't do that, so.
I'm looking more at the safety part of it too. I mean, if you've got kids who are not responsible on their bikes and that can impact, you know, elderly person driving down the road. And I agree, Brian, I don't want to just lock everything down, but I would like to see where we're at and if there's something that we need to build on to it. I mean, I'm torn on the helmet thing. I mean, I grew up with a dad who said, if you got anything, you have your helmet. And the other day I see a kid going down the middle of 4th Street, no hands on the handlebars, texting, going 30 mile an hour, I walk past 100. And I thought, well, that's natural consequences. So I'm split on the helmet thing, but I do think we need to at least see where we're at.
Yeah, and some of these larger electric bicycles that are faster or have more wattage, they actually fall under motorcycle rules, so there would be a requirement for helmets for under 18-year-olds anyway, eye protection. It's complicated, so like I said, do we want to look at an expansion of the side-by-sides or the WSUVs for general transportation?
Well, I think people are doing that already.
They are, and I feel like we either need to enforce the ordinance or we need to change.
Right? I mean, as far as the e-bikes, it's, like you said, it's complicated, so let's not overcomplicate the ordinance that we're gonna be put in place. Look at it reasonably and obeying speed limits and, you know.
It's fun, because a golf cart may not be a golf cart either, so depends on how many people can fit.
Right. And as far as the side-by-sides, yeah, people drive those everywhere, and, you know, I've had several people ask why we can't drive them on Oregon, so I'd just like to know if there's a reason why we can't drive them on Oregon.
I wasn't here when they passed. I will assume that since golf carts couldn't go that far, that they just, it's the same ordinance as the golf cart, so. I still, like maybe out to 12th Street, fine, I still have some fear, like really slow moving vehicles, some of them don't have seat belts traveling on West Oregon, where it's 45 miles an hour, and they're semi trucks coming off industrial and out J6, things like that. But that's, I mean, I'll leave that, I have some hesitation on West Oregon, but you know, from 12th Street in, 30 miles an hour.
Right.
So.
And I've had people, just they wanna go to the creamery and get an ice cream cone, and it'd be cool to, even me, when I have a side by side, you have to drive to the police department to get it inspected, so you have to break the law to get there.
Yeah, they-
Kind of go through a parking lot, trip over, but, I just think, Samantha, they have people parking downtown on the side by sides, people driving everywhere now, so.
Didn't you say it was a state thing too, though?
First Street, they can't be on First Street, they can cross First Street at intersections only,
But they can cross First Street.
only at intersections. So you can't cross them like a driveway,
Right.
so.
I'm concerned about some of these categories of not being visible to other drivers. If you're out there on a motorized skateboard in the middle of the street, how you gonna see somebody like that? You can hardly see a bicycle rider, let alone somebody riding something.
And I think motorized skateboards are not allowed to be on this.
Yeah,
But there's a couple things in town that only have one wheel, and motorized skateboards have two wheels, so we're gonna have to kind of create our own ordinance if you want to. Kind of restrict movement on those, but we can always prevent them from being on sidewalks too, so.
Right. This has been a problem for years and years and years, and it's only just getting worse.
Yeah, I think,
For the officers to try to enforce these city ordinances and that, and, I understand what Brian's saying, but I definitely see where we need to encompass a city ordinance that an officer can look at and get the answers to their questions when they're trying to deal with a particular situation. I just think whatever rules of the road, that the golf carts, the UTVs need to be registered with the city of Hiawatha, they need to show proof of insurance. I think there needs to be an age limit on golf carts, how old you have to be to drive them. You have to be old enough to understand what a stop sign means and why is it there. You have to be old enough to understand why you use hand signals and that sort of thing. That's just,
And that 17 could be because golf carts traditionally don't have safety equipment, seat belts, things
Right.
like that, so.
right.
I don't know why it put the 17 when it came through. But you also used to have to B17 out, or now you have B17 out of a particular class of drivers.
I'm not opposed to having them on Oregon Street.
No, I'm not either. I don't see,
all.
yeah. I don't agree with golf carts out on West Oregon
But
Street
state law would prohibit them from passing 13th Street,
past 13th.
but there's nothing on 13th. Well, I guess you could still go to the Chinese restaurant out there before it turns into a full.
I think, yeah.
Anywhere that's 30-mile-an-hour zone.
But we'd have to incorporate that into our city ordinance as well, so.
Yeah, I think they should be able to drive UTVs right on Oregon Street. They just need to be law-abiding citizens.
Yeah.
And they need to be insured. They need to be registered with the city. They need to be legal drivers. As far as helmets, there's no motorcycle helmet law in the state
Just for kids, just for minors.
till they're, what,
Yeah.
18?
Until you turn 18, you have to wear a helmet and eye protection, so. I'm learning all kinds of cool stuff.
Well, what do you folks think about the helmets? We need to try to give them some suggestions on what we're looking
Well,
at.
and we can do this too. Dave was gonna track down some ordinances, so you guys can take a look at it. Once we get this, this enforcement document put together, we'll probably send that out to you. I have plagiarized almost every page of it, so we're gonna have to keep it a local document. So I flat out stole some of it, but it's a lot of statutes, things like that, so.
Is there a bicycle helmet law?
No, I can't, so. But like I said, some of these e-bikes are not bikes, they're cycles.
Right. It's the fast ones that I have a problem with.
And you can't, you only have, you can only have as many riders, you have seats, I've seen some kids on pegs, and large, so. We used to all the time, but, nobody heard that one, but.
Yeah, I guess I survived.
So if that's okay, we can finish up this kind of enforcement document and, you guys can take a look at it, and we can revisit this at the next meeting. Or afterwards.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item 4, 200 block north third curve with gutter.
Good evening, everyone. The North Third Curb and Gutter Project. The curbs between North Third from Shawnee Street to Delaware Street on the east side and the west side of the streets are in disrepair. We have had residents wanting to replace driveways, but the curb and gutter in the area has deteriorated to a point where it needs replaced to accommodate the driveways being replaced. On the financial considerations, the stormwater fund would be utilized to complete this work. And right now, there's no legal considerations or policy considerations, but my recommended action is approve the curb and gutter on the west side of the 200 block of North Third Street to be replaced at a total cost of $21,678.80. And the remaining east side of the curb and gutter on the 200 block of North Third to be replaced at a cost of $9,737. The total for both those sides is $31,415.
So will these blocks be, is that the whole side of the block now?
Yes,
So we'll finish that one.
there is more sections in town. There's actually a resident that asked me about a 600 block north third actually, that I want to go have a look at as well. I think there's about half of it's been done. So what's been going on here is, you know, we've had a couple of residents that want to replace their driveways. And in order to make that water flow, otherwise it'll just sit in the holes and it's making force undercuts the street. You know, just really deteriorates the street very quickly. So like I said, that's why we're doing this. We want to do entire blocks at a time instead of doing pieces like we have in the past. And really, that's what the second half of this is. You know, this is finishing a project that was actually started by a resident, you know, years ago. Because now we have on the same side of the one block, on the east side, we have that curb and gutter that's done now. And on this one, this will finish it out, so we'll have new curb and gutter from Shawnee Street all the way to Oregon, which will allow our water to flow. And so really, that's the goal.
Well, I know we've talked about this in the past, and maybe we can do it with the budget season for next year, but I would like to bring back that 50% for curb and gutter, any resident that wants to do that. And I would allot a fair amount of money the first year and see if it takes and keep going from there.
Yeah, that's program.
Yeah, 50,000, we could do 50,000 out of the first. And maybe even a little more if we could do that, but that's a really good program and that gets things moving. So if we could do that for next budget year, I mean, it's a lot cheaper than us doing all of it, and if people want it done, normally, last time they jumped all over it, and even approaches, in the driveway, I think. I thought it was 15 foot, but don't quote me on that, I don't remember for sure.
Okay,
But we can look into something like that, short approaches as well. And, I don't know if we could even add alleys, because there is a big problem, you know, if we would pay 50% of alleys, if somebody wanted to, if a couple of neighbors wanted to redo the approaches on their alleys even, so. I just think that's a really good program and hopefully people use it. So if we can plan on something like that, maybe for budget season. And we had that program, we could probably pull that program up. I don't think we've had it for. I remember when we had it 8-10 years though. Maybe we could just bring that back up and then maybe we can modify it. A little bit and just reactivate it.
So is that something we should look at now before we approve this?
for that program.
Well, I mean,
You know, potentially bringing that 50% back up. You know, because you're gonna run into, we're putting what, how many $1,000s into this?
31.
How many feet is this?
$31,000.
Okay, on the,
And the
Okay.
next guy that comes around wants to do it and we've got this 50/50 program coming up, well, then they're gonna have to pay 50% of it. That's not quite right.
How many feet was it?
on North Third, from Delaware Street to Shawnee Street, on the west side of the street, to remove and replace 330 feet of curb at a cost of $11,998 and 80 cents.
330 feet.
For what?
330 feet is.
Yes, 330 feet. And to remove and replace 660 square feet of 6-inch street at a cost of $5,808. And then to remove and replace 440 square feet of alley at a cost of $3,872. And that's just on the west side of that street. On the east side of that street, on North Third, from Shawnee Street to Delaware Street, on the east side of the street, to remove and replace 125 feet of curb at a cost of $4,545. And to remove and replace 250 square feet of 6-inch street at a cost of $2,200. And to remove and replace 340 square feet of alley at a cost of $2,992. So that's both sides,
So that's both sides.
different footages, yes, on
And
both
an
sides.
approach.
Yes, and the approach was a square footage one for the approaches.
So I mean, I've had a little bit of time to think about it, because we've had a lot of discussions with exactly what Laura said. And I've said from the beginning, what we really need to have going forward into the future is a plan to see where are we gonna start with curbs and where we're going to start, where we're going to be, how much money we have to allocate towards them. Because a lot of what we're gonna run into is, if we come up with a plan and we publish that plan, I mean, it could be, you know, some areas of town might be, depending on the condition of the curb, it might be 10 years before we're able to get somewhere. And in some cases, it could be much more than that, depending on how much money we have available. If we have a cost share program, something like that, and if somebody really wanted to say, okay, well, I'm willing to put a path, if we'll jump to our area this year, you know, we thought, okay, well, that might incentivize people to do something like that. Whereas if we just follow a normal program, it might be a lot longer before we get there. And so that's why I was kind of thinking, okay, we need a plan, because we really need both. Because we have to come up with an actual plan in order to, I don't want to jump all over town, just doing curbs here and there. I like to say, this is where we're starting, this is where we're going, based off the condition, whatever it is. Condition is pretty easy on some of these. I mean, there are some areas of town where the condition of the curb really isn't that bad, but for the most part, they're pretty bad. I mean, we just need a starting point, a plan on how we're moving forward. If people want to move up on that plan, then that's where that cost share program would come in. And that's my vision of it. And so, that's kind of what I've been, thinking about.
And typically the cost share is 50% of supplies, so just, it's not 50% of the total project, it's
Yeah.
50% of the concrete. So it's a good deal for everybody. And we talked about this also, I mean, the curb and gutters is it's a big problem in town with them deteriorating. We need to, you guys find out which curbs are making the biggest impact on our sewer system. Because there's lots of alleys that are washing out, they're putting all the gravel down into our city sewer, and that we're just flushing good rock down our city sewer. So we need to have a plan of attack to make our city sewer work best, and not just because it's degrading, but because it's needed to make water flow. So whatever we however we start that process, I mean, you guys, when you guys see it, make a note of it, and let's move that stuff up to the top of the list instead of, just shooting around. And then once you get all that done, then I'll start at First Street and start moving, but we need to have some type of plan on that, because I think that's a really good place to start. Makes things look a lot nicer too.
The new curb and gutter is very nice looking.
But for now, though, what about this 200 block? I mean, Brad, what's your opinion on that? Is this something that we? Or?
I mean, I do, given the fact that, we have a resident that wants to replace a driveway, right now, it'd be very difficult for them to do anything. What they're wanting to do that work themselves, so it'd be very difficult for them to want to replace that driveway, with nothing to tie it. And so that's why on the east side of it, since we have new curb, a section of old curb and then new curb again, that's why I'd like to replace that. That way we can flow all the way. So that's why, I would recommend that we move forward with the project.
I'll make a motion unless anybody's got anything else.
Motion, we can still talk about.
I'll make a motion to approve the curb and gutter on the west side of 200 block North Third Street to be replaced at a total cost of $21,678.80. And the remaining east side of the curb and gutter on the 200 block North Third to be replaced at a cost of $9,737.
Second.
Been moved to second to approve the work on the 200 block of the North Third curb and gutter. Is there any public comment? Any further discussion from the commission? Don?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Motion passed 5-0.
Thanks.
Thanks, Dominic.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to communications. Anything, Brett?
So yes, we have a few things on here. We have the judge's report. But one thing I would like to talk about here is the Mattoon banner project that's going on, and the county is really kind of spearhead of this right now. And so what this is for veteran banners downtown. The city is helping with that, just assisting putting the brackets up themselves. Commissioner Tessler had approached me. They've already sold out the places that they have available. They have, I believe, 40 spots available they sold out of those really quickly. The people themselves, so what they do is they actually put this out for somebody to buy the banner for whatever banner they have. And they have more spots available than just what they have around the courthouse. And so I would ask that, for the city to look into expanding that on our side as well. What I would propose is that we go around the outside of the same square. And so we just go around the city side of the street instead of the county side, and we just kind of continue this project out. I've talked to Mike Brown here in town, and he said that right now, I asked him how much do those brackets cost. Similarly, what I would propose is that if anybody wants to buy a banner for a veteran, it's the same type of a thing where if they we fill them up as they come in. These would be displayed during Veterans Day, 4th of July, holidays like that. They would not be displayed all year long. That helps with longevity. But what I like about this project, and not only, just having the brackets available, it also makes these available for, like, say, different organizations to use. Like, I've already reached out to the Alumni Association for, like, graduating seniors every year. I've seen some towns do that. We could get with the Chamber of Commerce if they want to do something for, like, the Maple Leaf Festival, anything like that. The one thing that we did make clear that, but, our Halloween lights up and our Christmas lights up. And so the two, when those are up, we're not gonna be able to put banners on at least the one side. But, I think this is a good project. Like I said, right now, Mike said those brackets are about $68 a piece. If we did 40 as well, I believe that number here, I think it was like $27.20. As far as the price went for the brackets, but he did say that he was gonna give me a call tomorrow because he thought if we were a quantity, that the price could actually be less. I would just like, kind of a blessing that move forward and see what we can come up with here. I think it could be a really nice thing for Hiawatha, it'd be a really nice thing for the town. Make it another one of those things to make the downtown, look good.
I was in Abston, so, and noticed that seniors, I thought that was a pretty neat thing to do, but I think it'd be a great thing to move forward on, my opinion, so. What the rest of you think?
I agree.
This might make those, the banner itself.
Yeah, and so he can also make those banners too, and that's what we would recommend is that, we try to keep that business local as possible and, just go ahead and order those for Mike as well, and they'll look very, very similar to the one that we did have it up for about a week downtown, kind of, what the veterans banners will look like, but that's what those will look like. And I will move forward, I'll get some more pricing, and I'll get, that out. Other than that, we have the annual conference flyer, that's for the LKM conference coming up in October. That is October 8th through 10th at the Wichita this year, so I believe a few of you have already gotten with Don on maybe wanting to go to that this year. I always go, Don always goes, I think James going this year. So just get with Don if you'd like to attend that. And the last thing is just kind of more of a public education, it's just understanding city finances on here, it's kind of a flyer. City finances can be quite complicated. And so any information that we can get out on that is good. So that's all I have, that's all the other communications.
Okay, moving on to governing body comments. I was gonna comment something that I read on Stacey Jasper's page, but since I saw her here, maybe I want to comment on the volunteer work that occurred out at Bernie. I didn't know if you wanted to say anything.
Yeah, it is no surprise. We always have a great group of volunteers within our community. Jesse Clark had reached out a while back and was interested in getting some turf for the batting cages at Bruning, and then kind of just came upon a really great free deal. He drove up to Northwest Missouri State football field on Thursday, and they must be redoing the football field, so we got free turf. And then organized a group of volunteers over the weekend that installed it. And then we had purchased new batting cage nets about a month ago, and so they were able to get those up too. So just, yeah, really grateful that we seem to always have people that want to step up, and when it's for the kids.
That was kind of a neat thing to read, so.
Yeah, there was Jesse Clark, Drew Freschel, Ryan Olson, Adam Olson, Levi Manch, Greg Locke, Ryan Shockley's equipment. And I apologize if I forgot anybody.
It's appreciated when that happens, so. And I'm sure you had part of orchestrating that as well, so thank you for that. Dave,
I don't have anything.
Tom?
Yes, well, I stopped here Friday to talk to Brad, but he was not here. And, someone stopped me outside. They said they were coming here to see Brad. I said, well, is there anything I can help you with? And it was Darren Arnett. And he said that he was just stopping by to thank Brad for Public Works, or thank Public Works for the swift job they did at getting his utilities fixed
That's correct, yeah.
after a boring team kind of chewed some stuff up. But he just wanted to say thank you guys for getting that done quick. That's all I got.
Brian?
Is there any update for the, for dispatch? 'Cause I think Didn't we have a time limit in July on that?
We do, I'd like to discuss that during the budget workshop tonight. That's gonna be one of the big topics of discussion. That's basically what I've done for my entire preliminary, what I've done, the work I've done with the budget was to discuss this patch.
Nope, I don't think so.
Warren?
Did you have an opportunity to check into Second and Oregon, the status?
Yeah, so I called Brad Roseberger and he said it is on his schedule and he would be there with it.
2 to 3 weeks.
Mhm.
Very good. That's all, yeah.
So just motion to adjourn the budget workshop. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the budget workshop.
Second.
Moving second, any further discussion? Not,
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Motion passed 5-0.
Anybody wants to use the restroom or get drinks real quick, I encourage you to do that. I'm just going to get set up real fast. I tend to keep this, I don't want to drag this budget workshop out, especially when we start looking at numbers. You can get real monotonous real quick. I'm going to try to go through what I've done so far, especially with what I'm going to focus on tonight is going to be the ad valorem funds. And so your general fund, debt service, even though we don't use property tax towards that, we're gonna be looking at, Parks and Rec. We're going to be looking at, employee benefits and course library. And so, and like I said, I'll go over with everybody what I've come up with. I actually feel a lot better about it, but like I said, if anybody wants to get out and stretch their legs real quick, I encourage you to do that. It's gonna take just a moment, so.
Stacy. Tyson, yeah. Yeah.
So the Lions Club has their, right? And then you're seven, one part, they face.
Nice stuff. Those rules, you can see this, I mean, most of the way there or something.
Once you go to computers, set them and.
Yeah.
Values are going down.
One of these have all. Kind of all fascinating. Fired right back up. It's like. Yeah, like it's so brand. I'm gonna take pictures of it, send it to the engineers just to, you know. Yeah, it's been working. It's 14 foot, 7 foot deep. So it's about 2 foot from the overflow. Yeah. Where, I think parts like that place down by the railroad tracks. I think I'll get back now. Smoke test. I think there's something around. Yeah. There's 70 something. Yeah, that's. That's part of. That's only had 6.5 inches there, right? So we can't see the people with. No, not that I mean, even if it does, it should be like that, not that the building. I think it's the first one ever. That's what I'm kind of wondering, like, the other cities, what is, I mean, it's not gonna help with the flood.
Please.
I mean, I agree, and, yeah, that's. I don't want to ask me about it. That's how we go over that.
Except it was good without it. I agree. I don't. Get it up there. I know. Oh, we got all down. I did all right.
Speed.
I like to like it, so.
With all seven, the upstairs is seven. Stop house.
Why are there? Why?
Oh, stop lines.
Oh,
It's gonna be on my intro.
was it? Oh, I can't hardly hear you.
And that's probably stage, just like you said, see where exactly.
I know, well. But it just says. They break in. But
Keep going.
yeah.
Like they purge, you know, water on your name. Each other. Give you a ticket? Anybody get-
Okay, okay. It's not like they're dry, it's not.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow, it wasn't, he said, you're gonna. Oh.
Yeah. I'm really glad to see you working and putting that in one. It's so much easier for the officer to try that.
It has.
It's just getting worse and worse and worse.
Right now, I have research. I got stuff. Got stuff from some other. I got all these different things. Some of them are authoritative, some of them are not. Why? If I was a film, my God, exactly what it is. I wouldn't do it. That's why we talked about it. Trying to get everything out on that way. Anybody can see.
Because we had it.
Yeah.
No, the world. The super mill, there was intended wolves. They used to be. It's not, it might have been, that was like. Those state titles had age. There was a lawyer at Austin. I don't know.
Career. So.
I don't know much about that though. But someone said it's late.
Those two, like both of those. I see that.
Yeah, I thought it was early. I thought it was.
He had that building.
I thought it was specialized.
Yeah.
The
opposite.
There's currently city attorneys.
There's two departments.
Yeah.
And I. Everything, yes, is it, and then she has. Nice. I would have just. I would put all that in.
Yeah, I expect.
It's got a suspended ceiling. It's not. There's a couple piles that. I was shocked. Like that, just. Nice. That can scare you. Yeah. So this is the biggest thing was off the street. Yeah, so going this thing was hard. The hard back, they already got my stuff. It was good, I mean, that thing was. You just grab her. I know. Yeah. Really cool.
Hold things up.
And so.
See it. But.
It's a little bit easier to see. Is there any way are we? Can we break down the whole- Yeah. Can we break down the whole-
And Dominic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
You need that.
Yes, we used to.
Really good.
We didn't leave them.
Yeah. 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 They're on. I was thinking about that.
The 25 bucks, that would fix whatever you guys are trying to do.
Whatever.
What do you need? Call me 18 hours.
Yeah, I did. I just like you said.
That's 2 days out of school.
Okay, so really, as I go through this, kind of, I've gone through the entire 20, as I do every week. I've gone through the entire budget. You're gonna see that the projected for 2026 is not in there yet. A lot of those numbers I'm just not comfortable projecting out at this point. However, looking at the history, going through them, and like I said, I can kind of show you, I have to show you on my computer afterwards about kind of what this process is. But what I've done is go through every single budget that we have, get the 2024 actual, 2025 actual, 2026 budget, and the 2027 budget. And so, you know, the best way that I can start this is, you know, asking, you know, the questions that I believe I already know the answer to, because I think we've already discussed this. But we want to stay, is the desire of the commission to stay revenue neutral for this year?
Yes.
Okay. Because that does affect our timeline somewhat.
That would be the goal, but
That'd be the goal.
we need to see what.
Yeah.
We're up against.
And so I can show you kind of what we're up against here. And so I know I'd send out an email, this had probably been 2 weeks ago. You know, where I was not in a good place with the ideas that I was looking at. I was able to kind of refocus a little bit and come up with some, what I believe is a workable plan for, what we have going on. And so right here, what we're looking at is just our ad valorem tax. So The reason that norm is in red is because knowing that we want to stay fairly revenue neutral, it's just the same number as last. And so it's at 486,307. It's really hard to read when you got it in red. However, it's the same number. And so I've kept everything, because really, when you come to like the vehicle taxes, or all these other tags, things like this, they stay relatively the same every year. They don't change a lot. So I don't have the final numbers from the county yet, but that really doesn't matter. And so, if we want to stay revenue neutral, whether a mill is worth more this year than it was last year, which it will be, really is relevant. We want about the same dollar amount coming in. And so, while the dollar amount might be the same, the mills will be less to accommodate for that. And so, as you kind of come down through here, the county sales tax, we've had a couple of years here of, it's where the revenues have been 336,000, 665, and that was in 2024. We had 351, 384 for 2025. My 2026 budget was 330,000. Based off of that number, I really don't feel comfortable raising that too much. I don't know what the economy is going to do. That's a sales tax. You want to be pretty conservative with those if possible. I don't want to say that I want to say that we're going to get that 351,000. I don't know that that's going to be the case. Economy can tank, and we don't want to run short on revenue if possible, especially with the sales tax. Youth city tax, that's one that's, that one's been running a lot higher than what is normal. 2024. This is where a lot of our excess money is going to be coming from. We had 419,995. Yeah, 406,435 for 2025. We've had a couple of years where, it's proving to me that revenue is coming in. And so what I'm looking at here is raising that just a little bit from that 378 to the 390,000, just to, help out, kind of actually look at what we actually have coming in. Like I said, licenses, permits, things like this. Fire contracts are always the same. As you come down through all this, municipal, a lot of these that just have not changed. Utility franchise fee, I know this is something that Becky wanted to look at right now. We're 1% with Kansas Gas, or 2% with Westar. She had looked at raising those a couple of years back. She had budgeted 350,000. We never did actually raise those franchise fees. I just like to say that, when we raise franchise fees, that's just passed directly on to the consumer. And so whatever we did there, even if we raise it from 2 to 3%, that extra percent is just going to be passed directly onto the residents. And so, yes, we would see more revenue, but there would be, a downside to that as well. People would see higher bills, I guess.
How come it dropped so much from 24 to 25? Sorry, looking to only.
It's a,
I was looking at fines and fees. Sorry.
fines and fees, yeah. And so we have our land and tower rent, a lot of these really don't change that dramatically year to year. In the past, we've had transfers from wastewater, water, whatever it might be. And a lot of times the way it was explained to me, the reason why people did that, in a bid to stay revenue neutral when you need more revenue, you can put a franchise fee on your own utilities if you want. I did away with that last year. We stopped doing that. Reimbursed expenses, that's one of those, you don't know what that's going to be. Sometimes we do get reimbursed expenses coming in, and so I really don't budget for that very much. I try to keep that pretty low as possible. But really the number that I want everybody to look at right now is our total revenues. I have $1.7 million, $169, $1,708,169. And right now I have our total expenditures. And so really it's this bottom number here. So when I'm coming here, I'm looking at this number, that's revenue over expense. And so what I've done is free up 105,674. And I'm not saying that we use all of it for something. I'm just saying what I've done in the bid to stay revenue neutral. I have all of our budgets out to the, department heads, you know, and I'll kind of start going through this a little bit more. I'm not expecting this number to change dramatically. You know, it might change by a couple thousand here and there, but I'm not expecting it to change by tens of thousands of dollars. And because if it did, honestly, we need to have that discussion. And so I really want to get into how I've done what I've done. And so really what everything comes down to here is, you know, personnel costs. Personnel costs are high. And so when you look at, like, say, the 2026 budget, I had 284,327. When if everybody remembers last year, that was in a bid to kind of get what I understand why it was done in the past, because in order to get, you know, stay revenue neutral, you do have to move those personnel costs around. What I tried to do last year, I tried to plan for the future as much as possible, especially in the utilities and the streets, things like that. And so I took all of the admin costs, for example, myself, Dawn, Jane, she's always admin. But, you know, I took, McKinsey downstairs and I moved them directly back to administration solely. And so what I've done this year is walk that back a little bit. I haven't done that completely. And because, and I'll show you why as we're coming up. But and what I've done there is go from 284,327 to 224,349. So that's a big chunk of it right there. And so there are some things that, you know, we would need to discuss as far as the budget goes here for
Who's in administration again?
It is myself, it is Dawn, it is Jane, it is McKinsey, and I believe that's it. Right?
Lisa's totally out of you.
Lisa told me, he always has to. Utility clerk's always been completely out of utilities.
Who's code enforcement?
That is Chad, but he is also split with Public Works, and so he is being taken out of utilities as well. I don't have any budget in there for code enforcement at all, for salary. And so, and code has its own separate budget. It used to be higher because we used to budget Dave out of there. But we took that out as of 2026. So Chad splits his duties between code enforcement and also public works. And so that's why we have him down as a public works operator still to this day. So that he is taken out of water actually. And so when you come down to, anybody have any questions about anything else? I'll keep going through this. We have our subsidies in here. We have our subsidies to the chamber, 15,000 every year. I don't know why that number is that number, but that's just what we've always done.
Subsidy?
Subsidy for the chamber,
That's,
it's 15,000.
okay, that actually, does that include the admin?
That does not, so that comes out of a separate fund altogether. That's actually down lower in here.
Okay,
If
just
you-
wondering.
If you come out to the guest tax, that is something that's completely transferred over to our, that's something that actually goes to the chamber every year.
Mhm.
And so we do that for the guest tax every year. That also goes to the chamber. We subsidize the chamber 15,000. Like I said, I don't have any history on that. I can't explain why. Similarly with the ambulance, it's been 34,578 for a while. And we've been doing that for quite a long time. I think they did change that at some point in the past. I think he asked for a little bit more and that was granted. But from what I can see from the recent history, it's been 34,578. It's another one of those subsidies that's, you know, I don't know. Is a good reason why. It's good to have ambulance service in town. That's one thing I do know.
What's the 64,000?
That's just a number that I use. I think I mistyped something. I don't know. It's a sum of G15 and G19. So that would be that'd be a subsidy for all that'd be the entire subsidy. Because it's all the same. If you look at it, it's all the same line item number. And so it's 1011, 6011. And so it's all the same line item. It's just a subsidy line item, but it's just broken out. And so I wanted to see how much that totaled up to, you know, all went together. And so it's just a sum of those, lines.
Does the, yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt you, does the guest tax, does that apply to like, the glamping? Place out here and then the RV parks where the fifth wheels come in and they're in for a month or two?
I looked into that and so, there's a lot that plays into it, just like the e-bikes, it's, if there's an open concept that doesn't apply to it, if there's how many stays, whatever. Now, Airbnbs it does, but Airbnb collects that and submits it to the state.
I see.
So our guest tax right here within the city of Hiawatha would be our hometown.
Okay.
That you see, so. We get so much. Per place, but, yeah, Airbnb, they pay directly to the state, because I asked the same thing, like, with the glamping, and I said, are we supposed to be collecting this? You know, somebody does use Vrbo or Airbnb, I feel that, I guess I should collect. But currently, right down to the distributions I get from the state only reflect the.
And like you can see, you know, especially when we get down to that actual line item, which is transfer out, which is 10119405. What we have there is, that projected number you can disregard, I just didn't delete it. But our actual, what we've had actually come in for that is we have a 0 in 2024. I know that's not accurate. That means that probably went to a different fund. But you know, one year we had $9,195, and that's part of that guest tax. Right now, we're budgeting $25,000 as an expense. Maybe that's too high. You know, maybe that guest tax, budget's too high for that. That'd be another one of those areas that we might be able to claw back some of those numbers for. But the reason I haven't done that right now is I want to dive into that a little bit more and make sure that I'm not running us short of that. And see where that money actually went to, especially 2024. That one I have a big question on because it can't be 0.
I just have a quick question. I know I've already asked it, but what is our guest tax? Like, how much is it?
It depends on how many of stay, so, what do you call them? Yeah.
I just didn't know if that's like extremely outdated. We're not collecting it up.
That could be possible. I mean, that's something that we could also look at throughout this.
I don't know if we can set that.
It is.
Yeah, I don't know how.
I don't know.
That's a state thing, or I don't know how. it works.
We don't have mine off, but
Okay.
I can tell you what.
Ours was 12% a night.
It's 12%.
12% a night was what we had. That was low.
Where was that at?
In California. It was just determined by the municipalities or the area. The average in most parts of California were 14.
I was gonna say, I see 10 to 15% typically on the receipt normally. I just wonder if ours is even close to that.
And it played across to Airbnbs and to camping and like the RV spots. Yeah, it was part of it. And then we had to audit. It goes every 2 years because there were a few bad players who decided they didn't want to pay it.
I see.
Why is half a 0?
Half it is 0 because we now take that out of the industrial fund. We take that out of the economic development sales tax. We used to take that out of the general fund, but that's one of the things that we were able to do in the past. When we paid off some of those bonds, we were able to start taking that out of industrial, which is where it came out of previously at times too, so. That's why it happened to 0. I'm just gonna go ahead and move on. A lot of these are just line items. After this, I'm going to send this exact budget out to everybody. A lot of these are just line items. And so, like I said, you're gonna be able to get a little bit of the history, 24, 25, 2026 budget, and then 2027 budget. And so you're gonna be able to look at the line items. This is where the money's actually spent. Due subscriptions, miscellaneous fees, things like that. Insurance, sometimes it's a one-time thing. I know I do subscriptions, miscellaneous fees. Our insurance, we had 59,467. I know why that is. It's a bigger share than what it otherwise would be. Insurance did not go up this last year that's our, like, NPR insurance, our, kind of like our umbrella insurance. That's what that would mean. I kind of know where that one is. Accounting, auditing, things like that, you know, I like to look at things like this and see, you know, what's going on. Accounting, that's probably, you know, I have a bright knife here. Probably Don was trying to count. Miscellaneous supplies, things like, some of these jump around a little bit, so I really have to dive into it and look around and see, okay, was that a one-time thing? What was that? Or is that more of a trend? And so what I've done here is go through it, and honestly, I've cut what I can. And so when I see that we're not using budget in certain things, I have cut that budget. And one of the areas that I like to point that out in is housekeeping. You're gonna see that our housekeeping budget went from, you know, 4,000 to 0. You know, it doesn't mean that we're not gonna clean City Hall. It just means that we were budgeting that twice. Something that I found while going through the process. It was budgeted out of the History Center, which is traditionally where we paid that. But then at some point, we started paying that out of the general fund and not the History Center, so we're budgeting 4,000 twice. And so it was an easy one to cut. I can cut 4,000 right there, just boom. I mean, it's little things like that that you find when you go through the budget. Jane actually brought that to my attention, I think, this past year. And so that was something that, it's things like that, you know, those are the things that we're trying to do to, you know, be conscientious of what we're doing. And so that's just kind of the admin side of it, police. I'd like to point out a couple of things. You know how I was pointing out that I think that we might have to, you know, not fill positions when attrition comes, things like that, you know, not fill positions that leave, things like, and, you know, really getting into the, CIP part. I was really worried that we're gonna have to start cutting our CIP plan. Now, that was gonna be our vehicle replacement. I think the chief and I have had some really good conversations. I don't know if he wants to have the input here. But him and I have had some really good conversations about how many officers he needs to do the job that we're asking him to do. And he is confident that we need, to fill Janet's position. Right now, that's still budgeted for 2026. We have not filled that position. We wanted to wait to get, I myself put the brakes on that. I was like, I want to get to the budget process, see what this looks like. You know, wait it out, see what we can do. And this is just because we want to really start doing these things that, especially on the police side, you know, breaking the town up into quadrants in order to do nuisance abatement, code enforcement, things like that. You know, just that added workload. The chief is confident that we need that extra person in order to do what we want to do. And so that was gonna be a topic of discussion for tonight. Like I said, I'm not asking anybody to give me the blessing to fill that position immediately. But this is why, if you look at, you know, the 2027 budget, I have not cut that position. And so that 100,000 does not mean that I've cut a police officer, for example. The officer that we did have was the SRO officer, that position is gone. And it was grant funded, that position was kept in 2026. I have no intention to bring that back. Especially when you get down towards, like I said, Barb and the chief have been really good at going through their budget with me so far. I'm gonna meet with everybody on Friday. I'll meet with Stacy on Thursday. But, you know, the biggest change, another thing I'd like to point out here, not a lot of changes. A lot of these are very, very much the same. One of the things I'd like to point out here is the transfer to capital reserve. And that has not changed once again. And so if you remember right, we're putting in 37,500 this year. But we're at 30,000 of that's going towards vehicle replacement. Do you have any input on size of the fleet or fleet age, anything like that? Your problems that you're seeing?
So just, you know, we had that one vehicle that went through the water, that's done, we know that. We just had another head that had a problem, it just went out, so we're gonna have to replace that. It's gonna cost us about $5,500 to deal with that. For our conversation, not being able to replace a vehicle every year, and offset it for 2 years, so we can take 2 years worth of money on CIP and put it to a vehicle. And we're gonna try to make that work, obviously. Understanding though, with that, because we have vehicles that are on warranty, if we do have a problem, we're gonna have to pay for it to get that vehicle fixed. But, foregoing acquisition of additional vehicles, so that way we just go ahead and wait that 2 years before we start pulling in that for that vehicle off the CIP.
And she said we had a car go in the water.
Oh, that was, when was that, Brad?
That's correct, yeah, so that was out of the city of Lake County. And so it's, what do they call that, hydrolock? This-
Hydrolock, yeah.
Yeah. It's the one that's down at, I believe it's down at HD Repair.
Went in the water.
Oh, that's the one that's been sitting there for a while.
That's correct.
Yeah, we have it back now, we're stripping it down and getting the stuff off of the equipment off of it, so we can replace that equipment onto a vehicle whenever we do
It
acquire.
was one of the older Chargers, I believe, it might have been one of them that they bought used.
I can't help but ask, how did that happen?
I don't know anything about it, so
I don't know anything about that. How did that happen? We put a car in the lake?
No, so they didn't go in the lake. What was going on is, especially on the west side, you know, there's that tube that goes over
On the far west side.
far west side, between the two sides where you go the north and the south side. From what I understand, it was driven, the water was too deep and that's what happened. Is that correct?
Apparently, so.
I believe so. It was before the chief got here. It was right before he got here, actually.
When water gets sucked up into the head, I guess, it hydrolocks. And it's our system.
how many miles are on them? I don't know that.
I don't know, I can't turn it on, but,
Did the insurance cover it?
Not that I'm aware of, no. No,
Is there a reason why?
I don't know. I'd have to get with the insurance and figure that out.
Yeah, we gotta find out about that.
Yeah. Okay,
Well, we have full coverage, right?
Did they submit it to insurance?
I don't either.
They did not
Either
give it
that's-
to us to submit.
We
The question-
can find out about that.
We'll go back to guess.
And I would just say, if we put another car in the water, it'd be nice to know.
Okay, yeah.
Let's go back to gas tax just for a minute.
Hopefully we don't.
They're required by state statute, but.
I just read it 6%. At least that's what the AI guy said. I want the 6.
Kansas Office of Revisor Statute 79-53.
Says 5. Okay. Manhattan's 8 and
Okay.
AI is right.
So I don't know if you can add on to that or not, but they are required 5%. Without doing some more digging. We
Paper was 8.
currently,
The auto was 7 or 8.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
without doing some more digging within our parks, see. if there's more of that.
Might be just something to know, I mean,
Currently, so far this year, I've only received the first quarter. And we total received was 21,538.99. However, because of the CID sales tax, we have to pay somehow to the Hiawatha Hotel. So far for 2026, it's been 15,097. And that's for the.
So there, we have to pay some of the guest tax back to them?
We do, it says pay guest tax to Hiawatha Hotel.
Mhm. There's a spreadsheet on.
Mhm.
How long is that, or did that I have no clue, but did it expire? Should have that expired when,
no, it's part of the CIP, agreements, and that, the IRB is different than the CIP. Is that what you're thinking, the IRB?
yeah,
that-
yeah, I don't know. if
Yeah,
it's the same term or how.
We can look at that, see, I can see what that
And
is.
get you that information, but that's Hiawatha Hotel itself, that's just the Best Western.
And
Um,
how much did you say that was? them?
so far this year, we paid them 13,987.
So
Wow,
they're getting
Yeah, that's
10%,
That's how it
something.
is.
and then, so far from Stars Inn, we've received 577.26. Fairbridge Inn, 4,162.70, and Ballstad, so far is 1,690.50.
So the one hotel is getting the bulk of it.
Mhm.
You could up at 2% and then just make the resident pay their portion of it, and we would.
Um,
Yeah, if they just get like 2% or if it's a percentage of whatever we're charging, I don't know. Be a question, but
I'll look through the rest of what's in here and what started all of.
And like I said, when we get to like our transfers to capital reserve, even in the administration. Right now, we have 25,000 per year going to new software. That still hasn't been cut yet. I know that's going to also be a topic of discussion throughout this process. On what kind of new software we get, or even if we get new software. And so that's something that, a decision that we'll have to make. We do have a price on what it would cost for, the municipal court software from Jayhawk. We're looking also into timekeeping as well. So that'll come in a little bit clearer. We'll be able to have a good answer for that here coming up here pretty soon. But so far I haven't cut anything from CIP at all. And so when you get to municipal court, for example, a lot of this does not change. Just salaries, we're looking at 3%. Fire, kind of the same thing. Theirs is always pretty steady. Lights, really our biggest expense of lights is going to be electricity. And so I was able to cut that back just a little bit because I don't want to cut it all the way back to 54,000, but I think that at one point we were budgeting like, $70-some thousand for electricity at a point in the past. And since we've gone to LED lights, we've had a long history now of using far, far less. So I've cut that back to 58. It's not a huge savings, but it's something. Really the supplies here are pretty easy. And also we have $90,000 left in the Post Lantern fund that, can only go to Post Lantern. We can only ever spend out of Post Lantern because of the way it was collected with sales tax,
and we have, how much did you say we have left in that?
$90,000.
What is the plan with that?
My plan with that is to forge new bases because we're out of those. So we need to contact a foundry that will actually do that for us. We have the mold for that. Get a price on it, get some new poles for when these things do get hit. If it's icy out, things like that, when they get hit, that we're able to replace them as they go. That money is also gonna be used to straighten the poles up. Things like that, buy globes, any kind of supplies that we need for those, Post Lantern lights.
But that tax is no longer
That
collected,
tax
right?
is no longer collected. That was excess money that was left over after that project was done and that tax was collected.
So we still have, those lights down by Mitchell still don't work, right?
That's correct, and that's also something that
Use that to get those going again,
That's correct.
because that's a solid 3 blocks or something, if
Yeah.
it don't work.
It's all the 200 block of north, the south aid, And so you probably got about what, 5, 6 lights there that don't work? Yeah, at least, yeah. So, yeah,
Do we have and can we budget for it this year? and just get it
yeah,
done?
no, we actually have that money down as an expenditure for this year, so.
So we have an idea what it's gonna cost to fix it?
Yeah, we do, and it's not gonna be anywhere near 90,000, it's gonna be more like, you're gonna spend less than 5, okay, to get that done,
Can you get that done?
yeah.
Revenue for the CID. So in 2012, they passed a, community improvement district out there for that hotel. And you're right, 2%. 2% of the selling of tangible personal property at retail or rendering or furnishing services within the district is authorized and directed. The collection of the sales tax shall commence on April 1st, 2013, and shall expire 22 years from such commencement date. So they are getting 2% and for 2020.
2034, is that what you said? It's what, 22 years, is that what you said?
22 years from the commencement date, they commence on April 1st of 2013, so it's 35.
Just be an idea to up to 2%, and they basically be paying their own. The other hotels aren't paying hardly any of it. And then you would be up pretty well close to where everybody else is. I'm just Googling if that's correct.
Yeah.
If Ottawa's at 8-9%, I would say Ottawa's, don't get me wrong, Ottawa is a bigger town than us, but
So, code and building, there's really not a lot here to discuss, postage, that was an easy one to cut, we don't use any of it anymore. That money's taken out of admin, which hasn't affected our admin budget for postage. We don't have anything in there for travel training. Dues and subscriptions, we have just very little when it comes to dues and subscriptions for there. Demolition expenses, once again, I left money in there because we don't know what that's going to look like. We don't know whether we'll have a property in 2027 that needs to be demolished. I did leave some money in there. I took it down from 12,000 to 7,000. I didn't want to take it to 0 because, like I said, you never know what may come up during that time. I want to have at least enough money there to do some work if needed. And so code and building's really, pretty easy. Library is one that worries me a little bit, I guess, is a good way to put it. When it comes to the mills, and really what I need for the library is to figure out how much what a current mill is, where that mill levy cap's going to be for them, and how much they can raise. And so I'll have that information here within the next week. By June 15th, the county has to have that preliminary information to us. Is that correct, Don? June 15th, they have to have that information to us. And so we'll have that information in the next week, have a better idea. I have reached out to the library just to ask them, hey, where you at? I don't expect them to answer me right now. They probably don't know quite yet. They're probably going through, the same process we do. And so, me not knowing that right now does not surprise me. They're not trying to hide anything or anything like that. They just don't know. And so I need to figure out where that's going to be, how much, because, last year they've gone up more than 10%, for the last 2 years. I don't know that I expect that to be any different this year. Their mill levy cap, they're running at 7.5. They were like 6.8 mills. They don't have a lot of room there left, but they do have some. So they can probably,
Max out at 7.5.
7.5 is their max.
And that's it.
Then that's it. They can't go any higher. And so, and they know that, I made that clear that by our charter ordinance, I believe it's charter ordinance, we changed that to 7.5 from 6.5. Just to give them room to, part of their financing is they have to go up at least $1, something like that. They could run tight for them a little bit, but I think they gave them some room there. And so we had that discussion, I think it's right at the end of the year here too, kind of with the library. They're aware of their mill levy cap. They can't just keep going up forever, but they're kind of coming up against it now. I do expect it to go up some. I don't know how much that's going to be, that kind of plays into this a little bit too, and kind of where we go originally, you know, let's say last year, we actually did go up just very slightly on our ad valorem, our property tax did go up very slightly. We actually went up less than what the library made us raise. And so that 10% that they made us raise dollar wise, our property tax went up a little bit less than that, which means that from the other funds that do collect that property tax, we actually cut money out of those in order to accommodate that. Industrial funds, pretty easy. Now we have the city sales tax. That's coming in at, you know, 220,000 in 2025, 211,000. I budgeted 210,000. They haven't changed that at all. That's where the appropriation for HEFIT comes from. Economic development expense. I did this last year as well. 156,300. It should show up under the 2026 budget. I don't have it in there. I do now. But I haven't changed anything here. Our transfer to bond and interest. 15,400. Honestly, should be. What's that for? I'll look into that one. I don't know that that's needing to be budgeted anymore. But industrial funds pretty easy. That's where the appropriation for HEFIT comes from. One of the big things I'd like to, you know, get in your heads is, you know, that 156,300. You know, we are using that this year for utility work at Bruning, but we're going to be collecting roughly that amount every year. And so we need to figure out something to do with it that's constructive. It has to go towards economic development in some way. Just something that we can do with that money that can really help Hiawatha. We have an opportunity here.
I'd actually say that we don't have a real plan to end the tax. And not just spend money. And from everything I read, we can do it as a commission, because that tax was not sold the way that we're spending the money. And so if we could end that, and we can maybe look at doing another tax, but I just don't agree with the way that tax was sold,
Which that,
the economic growth tax.
Of course, because
We only,
off in 2035, is that correct?
yeah, I think we still have
9 years of that.
9 years, and we only needed 4 or 5 years of it. But it was passed at 15 years, so there is no plan for 10 years of that money, basically. Now, we are using it, but I just don't, it's not what the people voted on, and so it's really not very transparent of us to keep going with that tax.
depending on what the verbiage of the ballot.
The everything I read, it was to pay off the 2 bonds, or however you wanna say it, for.
And so it was at the $196,000 bond payment that I did have, that one for it, yeah. Which paid off, like I said, we paid off a year early last year. They would have paid off this year. The ballot, I have to look at it. I think he just read continue it or something like that. I don't know. But there was also literature put out with that, which I think was.
There was literature in the newspaper, and that's basically what I'm.
Right, it's referenced.
And then what it was, it specifically said that if you don't pass it, we're going to raise your taxes 4 to 7 mils, I think is what it said. And so, yes, everybody did vote for it, but I didn't actually look up to see what the vote actually was, how close it was, but I don't like it.
I'd have to agree with Ryan on that, that if the money was used, paid for what it was intended for,
Mhm.
to just drag it on and then look and say, oh, we've got 150,000, not real sure what we're gonna do with that. I just think we should end it.
Okay.
It was sold in one way, we paid off what it was sold to pay off. So for us to just say, we need to find somewhere to spend money, it's not fair to the taxpayer. And I also had somebody complain about, our street tax because and I know it changed 3 or 4 times, or however many times after that vote was passed. But that's not the best thing to do either, so, you know, when we sell something like that, we need to stick with the plan that we sold the election, we sold it to the people for. there's several people that are saying we need to be replacing that road over there, and I don't think we really have a plan to do that yet.
Which one?
The
Brook
brick?
Street?
Brook Street up here, that's the last street, and I mean, from what I remember, it was supposed to be those 3 streets that we were gonna do,
Mhm.
so.
We really need to get grant money to be able to do that though, even with the street
Well,
tax, we weren't gonna be able to pay it unless we had
It,
the grant money. That's the only reason we got the one time.
I mean, the commission chose to do it that way though. It changed after the fact of the election. Cause it was that those 3 were gonna be replaced. Now, how it was, I think we found out that there was grant money at the time, and then we went, oh, wait, we can do more streets. And then there wasn't enough grant money to cover it. I've done quite a bit, quite a bit of reading,
Probably know more than I do.
and that was, you know, that one was determined by, I think, 3 votes. 3 or 4 votes, so. It's another touchy one, it's too late now, but we do need to do something with. Trying to come up with a plan, whether it's grant or whatever.
Yeah,
that
I 100% agree with that, the Brook Street are in front of me. Special Parks and Rec Fund, this is not this is liquor tax, and so you'll notice that. You know, we budget for a certain amount every year, and the liquor tax coming in for next year, they say $10,000, I'm gonna tell you, we're not getting anywhere near that. You know, the county tells us to budget for 10,000, you know, our actual numbers that we have coming in, as you can see, we had 3,588, 4,782, and so we get about, I'd say, half of what the liquor tax actually, they tell us to budget for. So this is why our expenditures here are usually budgeted lower.
So far this year for liquor tax, we've only collected 1,675.84.
I just,
how is that collected, I guess, I don't know.
This,
Is that a percent?
It's a
percent?
it's a percent off of the sales of liquor.
yeah,
And it is supposed to go to a special fund that can only be used for certain things. And so that's why it's not, it's one of the special funds, Parks and Rec is, the fund that it goes to. And like I said, that's why we don't budget expenditures all the way to the revenue, because we never see the revenue.
Is that a state deal too, or is that something we
That
said?
is some type of state law.
It is state?
Mhm.
half alcohol, half liquor tax, and what do we receive? I know one goes to, half goes to special parks,
Yeah, I thought-
and then I can use, I'll tell you the other part goes. But yeah, that's determined by state.
So, special street fund, that is the fund that Brian was referring to, that's a half cent sales tax that was used for the concrete street project, that brings roughly $440,000 a year. Like I said, probably, maybe I'm being too conservative, but I have it at $400,000 at 2026 budget at, 390. Can ignore my projected there, that's not. It's too early in the year for that. But 2024, we had 423,000, 2025, we had 440,000, which tracks because our quarter cents bring in about 220,000. And so I have the 2027 budget of 400,000. We have 2 bond payments on that. One is for the concrete street project. That bond payment is roughly 277,000. We have the bond payment for the traffic signal coming out of that one as well.
So are we able to pay that one off,
I'll be able to pay this one off now.
the street, the signal, because we don't need it? Will they allow us to pay it off early?
Well, you'll get penalized for it.
And what's the penalty though? I mean,
I don't.
because if the penalty doesn't equal.
I'd have to ask
It might be worth it.
our bond attorney on that one, or our financial advisor.
Because what we allotted for. We should be pretty close to being able to just pay for it
Yeah, pretty close.
instead of bonding. And I mean, I understand the reason we do this, like, but even the sales tax. I believe, did we do a 25-year bond for the streets? right?
No, for the
Or
street,
we end up doing 20.
oh, geez. It's bigger than that, the street bond was,
We cut it down at the end. It was gonna be a 30-year and then we cut it down to 20 or 25,
Let me go back.
cause I think it saved like $900,000. I think we moved it to 20, but
You guys just keep talking, I'll come back. Yeah, that's
Good.
okay.
and so moving on to Parks and Rec.
well, what I was gonna say about that though is we have a lot of meat on that bone of the that we're collecting.
You want me to go back?
You know, we should have been more aggressive with the bond even. Because those interest rates are, they're killing us. Basically, there's no reason why we should collect a sales tax and not spend it for what we're doing instead of having money left over. Especially the amount that we have almost 30% left over from what we're collecting. That should be going to what the people voted it for.
Mhm.
Instead of adding stuff to it,
Right,
it's just not very transparent, and those roads end up costing you double when you finance them that long, when we could be paying them off earlier.
okay. We do have quite a fund balance in that one too. I would like to point out that part of it is tied up, but I think we're gonna have like 1.3 million in that account. That's where our fund balance is. Some of that's tied up with, you know, HRS, but you know, you're talking like 500,000. So
You can, streets got a curb and guttering as well, so that can.
But if we can pay off our debt, I would say that's what we should do,
So
because otherwise your streetlight's gonna end up costing you almost double.
but you're currently talking about sales tax street project,
Right.
correct? Okay, its maturity date is July 28th, 2051. So it was 30 years.
It was 30,
Mhm.
I have to go back to that meeting because unless they were gonna try to do it longer than 30,
yeah, because those Series 2021 is.
I thought you were kidding.
maybe they're, because I remember saying that the concrete won't last that long, so maybe it was gonna be 40 years and we moved it to
I
30.
think I remember some of these conversations with someone. I mean,
We have the bond guy here even,
yeah,
but I swore that we cut it down even more than that. Anyways, I'll do some research on that.
I don't know.
Not that it matters now, but
moving on to Parks and Rec, this is yet another one of those, ad valorem tax, so this does affect our property tax here. These are, once again, this is the revenues that we have coming in, property tax, the 36,728. This is the number, it's an arbitrary number, I put in there, it's not going for some reason, I don't know why I was doing, it doesn't matter. It is probably what a mill was, 2 years ago, honestly. But what we have here, all the revenues that we have coming in, I simplified this one quite a bit last year. We used to be pretty long when it came to this. And so we have like events and recreation revenue. We had 21,600 for that revenue. Concession incomes, all of it, all, everything like that. Part of this is MBT tax. When you do that in the state form, you take what the county gives you, you input it into the state form and it breaks that up for you. It tells you where to put that money. And so, yeah, that money isn't just like arbitrarily put in here. No, I don't just look at that and say, okay, well, you know, we're going to get, I'm gonna give $24,000. It's actually, that's decided by the state form that the state of Kansas actually decides that for us. Like I said, 4% sales tax is in there as well. event revenue, like I said, this is all of our programs. And this is just kind of a breakdown of the expenses between the three, departments that are within that. I'd really like to get, we have 2511, which is recreation, we have 2516
Parks and
is parks, and 2518 is special center. I'd like to do away with that if possible. That's a holdover from, back when Parks and Rec was part of the general fund at 120. And so I'd like to just combine all that. I think it'll simplify it for everybody. Because right now, we pay salaries out of one fund essentially, but you're paying out of 3 different spots. You're paying electricity out of 3 different spots. It doesn't make a lot of sense. And it's a lot easier for Jane to pay it out of one line item than it is for me. And so it's a lot easier for Don to process payroll out of one line item than, 3. And so it's going to make a lot of sense. We're gonna be talking to our accountant about that. That's something that I talked to Don about already. It won't affect the budget for Parks and Rec at all. It'll just simplify it for everybody else. Unless you have any objections to that, do you have anything to add to that? I guess I haven't really wrapped up by you.
No, we talked about it.
Okay. I've talked about so many budget things here, like it gets lost.
Oh, I'm sure.
Um,
That would only make sense, combine
Yeah.
it.
I mean,
Make
it
it
just like I
simpler
said,
for everybody.
paying electricity out of 3 different spots doesn't make a lot of sense.
No, it doesn't.
And plus it just makes it easier for everybody to actually see what's going on. That's what I really like about that. So once again, this line here, this expense over revenue, right now 41,306, kind of more of like in the back pocket type of a thing right now because of what we're talking about with dispatch, with not knowing with library. This is funding Parks and Rec Department salaries, like as you can see here. We have $6,000 for salaries here, but we'll figure that out. And these are just the general expenses that we have, grass maintenance, whatever the deal may be. Getting down to events expenses, 21,600. That's just, I budget as much in revenue as I do for expense. The reality is actually quite different. If you look at the, like say the expense that we had here, we had 17,279 for events. So that's like Pumpkin Palooza, all those events that, Parks and Rec does throughout the year. The biggest ones being, of course, soccer, T-ball, you have your flag football, you have the haunted house. But the actual expenses that we had or the actual revenue that we had for that last year was 29,680. And so our revenue actually outpaces expenses on this one. And so just wanted to kind of point that out real quick. Transfer to employee benefits, like I said, it gets complicated. This is a lot of line items, they repeat themselves. This is parks, and you see most of the budget for, I'm just gonna turn this different colors so that you can actually see it. But like I said, this is good. This is what I'm talking about, simplifying it. They had 7,000, now we have 213,000. It should be one fund. Electricity, same thing. It's a holdover from what it used to be with the general fund. And so this is what we're looking at with Parks and Rec. Fisher Center, same thing. A little bit of budget comes out of there. Once again. And so that's what we're looking at with Parks and Rec. Really, the number that I want everybody to focus on is our revenue over expense. So we have 41,000 more in revenue than we have in expenses. By this budget. Like I said, going through these budgets with the department heads, they're likely to change a few thousand here and there. I don't expect dramatic changes, like I said, tens of thousands of dollars, I don't expect. And so, like I said, it gives us room. Employee benefits is a good one, because I want to point a few things out here. And so, especially with group health and accident, this is our actual health insurance that we pay, the city of Hiawatha pays. And so I want you to look at 2024 actual. That's 291,631. I believe I sent out an email on this already. But the group health and accident for, which is our health insurance for 2025 is 320,175. And then you look at our 2026 budget. You know, we have 474,408 based off of the numbers that we're being provided by our broker, which is the entirety of what we're doing here, because we offer 4 plans. And so we only actually cover option D for the city of Hiawatha. And so it took me a little bit to get my head around what's going on. And really what's happening is the city pays a certain amount, so I did try. And if you come up here to reimbursed expenses, which is right here, that reimbursed expense line item is, I call that unrealized revenue. Because what happens here, those are the employee contributions that we get. What I did here was get that number to where I thought it was correct, to try to keep our ad valorem number down. And so I tried to accommodate for that. However, I don't think that that's enough. I think by budgeting for the entire, like say, option A, for example, it kind of throws our balance here out of whack. And so, like, what I've done is I really think that we can cut this budget probably fairly significantly. Because I think we're over budgeting for our health insurance. You know, and this is still, honestly, this is still more than 10%. I mean, I'm still kind of looking into it. I'm still looking into how much the actual employee contributions are going to be. But really what this is going to do, this is going to offset the ad valorem tax number. And right now, what I have is 54,408 revenue over expense. And so our actual expenses are $54,000 less, which means we're not gonna do that. And we don't want that going towards fund balance. We want everything being even. If we have some room there, I'd really like to have a hard look at that, see what those actual expenses are. I've looked at this year's, I'm kind of starting to project that out. I believe we're gonna be around 320,000 again. I don't think option D is really changed that much.
So we budgeted 474,000, so I don't remember it going up 30%.
Yeah.
It only went up like 10% last year.
Because the budget that I was working off of was a one from the year before, where it was like 420 some thousand, you know, something like that. And so I budgeted 10%, which was ended up being $42,000.
Yeah.
And so, but by doing that, I think I've over budgeted. I guess is a good way to put it, which I think that now is the time, now that I understand these things a little bit better, especially health insurance, kind of a tough one. I really would like to maybe try to get that more into focus on what we're actually spending. While still leaving room for budgeted for increases that we can expect. Now, there are a couple of options here with health insurance for this coming year. We really want to look at getting into a pool. I know we've talked about that in the past, but like I said, that's another one of those numbers here, that 54,408 is a good number to keep in your mind. That's our revenue over expense. And so really, you know, we've kind of run through, and I'll run through the rest of these really quickly.
If we over budget for health insurance, are we able to give into the HSAs?
You could, you can always contribute it to HSA if you so chose to do, yes.
But I mean, do you have to? Is there, I mean, when can you decide you're gonna do that?
I think the city commission can decide to do that
Anytime?
at any point, but the problem is they have to be in an HSA approved plan, so you'd have to have option D. Like, you can't have option A and get an HSA.
But, I mean, do most people have it or no?
Quite a few people have option D. I know that I'd say more than half, but I'd say there are those that do pay for option A, B, and C as well.
Well, how we worked around that previously, remember one year we did do an HSA. Everybody was on $5 plan then.
That was-
Now we offer 4 different ones, so after.
It have to be above 5,
Yeah.
or below 5.
So
Not
the
below
few
5.
people that didn't, because if you collect veteran benefits or any of that, you don't qualify for overshoot. So, but you qualify for an FSA. However, an FSA only lasts 1 calendar year.
I thought ours rolled over.
No,
no,
not
I'm sorry.
FSA,
Yeah.
HSA goes over,
HSA.
but the FSA don't, so if you were to decide, to say, okay, we have a surplus of funds in October. And wanted to give each employee X amount of dollars, the ones that have FSA only have until the end of the
So then you use it, right,
Yeah.
that's not,
I shouldn't say, they have a grace period, you can carry over about 500, and you have a grace period to use that too much. Going back to ordinance 2097, with approving the streets. And then ordinance 2077 was Evo sales tax, and that was voted on 5-0.
that's what,
Voted on 5-0. According to the excerpts from the minutes, but, I mean, that doesn't matter here nor there, I just need you to talk about it, but, streets was ordinance 2097, 30 years.
okay, yeah, it might have been 40 years that we were looking
Mhm.
at, I just know that we cut it down.
But just so you can
Yeah.
information out there.
And so I'll run through these really quickly. The number that I want everybody, because really what I wanted to focus on today was how much money do we have? How much money has been freed up for what we're looking at with staying revenue neutral and still yet dealing with dispatch on how we're going to pay for that. And so between the three funds, we're looking at really the three major funds that I'm talking about, we're looking at about $50,000 that we have
How much?
200,000.
So I have 141 extra right now, from what you told me.
You have,
100,000 to begin.
wait, benefits 54,408.
Oh, I didn't get that one.
Yep.
That was the last one.
Yep.
Okay.
Which may end up being more. And so let's just stop here just for a moment. I'd like to discuss dispatch maybe a little bit on what I think is fair for the city. I think I probably relayed this message to at least a few people so far, not everybody maybe. Like I said, by the numbers that we've been given from the county, I can come up that we're about 25% of their calls. And if you look at their budget, if you look at how many dispatches that is, and I think I've said this in the past, we're looking at 100,000 there. Right around $100,000. I'm not saying that's where we'll end up. But in my opinion, I think that should be at least our initial offer to the council. But I'd like your input on that.
Well, I feel like we have to do something, but we're already double taxed on it. Pretty much anyways. So he asked if it's 25% of the call volume, but yeah, all of us are paying county property taxes as well. So,
And then we've got the 911 tax on all of our phones and
right,
et cetera, et cetera. I mean, every household's got multiple phones and.
Then didn't I see that the Beth's paying Nemaha County like 88,000 for their dispatch?
That's correct, yeah.
I don't know if it's been approved, but they did put out a flyer on the city of Savannah's website or Facebook page.
Because I think they're getting rid of their dispatch centers, is that
I
correct?
think they're trying. I don't know if it's been voted on, but yeah, it is.
when we had an agreement that we were gonna, whatever the agreement actually was, whether it was 2 officers or whatever it actually was, I don't know. But it shows that we were going to pay something and that there was a trade-off, so what that number actually is.
I still wonder where we're gonna go with the connecting highways. I mean, like, that $90,000 just sticks in my brain that we just spent.
And that has to be a part of it. And so any kind of agreement that we do come up with, that would have to be a part of the agreement as well. I think that a total fund, what Andy has said to me over and over again, having a complete financial agreement is the best path forward. And so if they are getting money for our connecting link streets, Oregon Street, East Miami, the few that we have, North Sixth Street, we need to be getting that money to help our streets as well.
Is that something they have to put in for, or is it just automatically given to them?
I don't know that.
Because that'd be the question if you have to submit or put in for that, it would be involved.
So that's just Oregon though, right?
That's Oregon, there's a little bit of East Miami, there's North Sixth Street, those are the major ones.
Do we know,
So
how much-
six from Miami,
do we know what that number actually is?
we don't even know whether they get it or not.
Whether they get it or not?
That's correct.
I think according to statute.
Then we need to find that out before we even bring it up.
I agree with that,
Because I don't think anybody knows that question. That's been who pays for what on those streets for a while.
Well, we've always just kind of, it's the figuring out it all washes out at the end with dispatch to the streets and all that. We just kind of kept going, which doesn't mean that's what's right. It's just, I don't know.
any other thoughts on dispatch on,
How much is the actual 911 money?
90 cents per
do we?
device that has cellular.
I've seen that.
90 cents per bill? or
Per
line?
device that,
Per device.
so,
Yeah, so like my.
and my cell phone bill, we
That's
have
monthly.
2 Apple Watches, 3 phones. So we pay 90 cents by that.
A month.
If you have cellular data hooked up to your Apple Watch. Like I don't have it on my same stuff, so I don't pay it.
And we do have that number, the PSAP number is something that we can get. Hey, I've seen it, I just don't have it off the top of my head.
Definitely worth looking into.
Hmm.
Yeah, tie that down.
The connecting link statute, it looks like it falls under 68-416A.
I don't know, I guess. Only $30,000 a year.
Awesome.
I'm just
Kind of did figure
doing
it.
trash numbers, but.
Yeah.
Somewhere around, I'm just gonna say 2,500.
I figured I figured, when I thought about it, we have 1,500 water meters,
Hmm.
just one, but it's on, not just cellular, I shouldn't say, it's on your home phones too.
I'm just
Right,
surprised.
but I'm just saying, if there's 2,500 people that have cell phones in town, that's roughly $30,000.
Yeah.
You can figure some kids have. But still, there's 3,300 residents in here, it's safe to say that maybe 700 of them don't. Yeah, it's still around, it's not, I'm saying it's not $100,000, it's probably $20,000 to $40,000 somewhere. But it's still something to say, hey, if you guys want 150, you're getting our 911 money, so let's meet at
Exactly.
100 and let's call it a day and be done, and it's probably pretty close.
Okay.
The other things that I'd like to see with the agreement, I mean, I think it's. The old one was like this, I think the new one ought to be any kind of agreement with them, whatever the number is. Like to see it be a monthly agreement instead of a yearly like months. Monthly just allows us to spread that over the course of the year. And not have it be such a hit to our finances outward. And so if it's 100,000, that's $8,333 every month, for example. And so I'd like to see it be a monthly agreement. I also like to see it start in 2027 if possible. Just the 2026 budget's already been done. It's going to be pretty hard to, account for that in the middle of the budget year. But, I'll leave that open also for discussion or guidance. Like
How many years can we try to do this? We don't wanna negotiate this every year.
I think the idea that I heard was 3.
Was a 3-year deal. I still wanted to limit it. I wanted to try to come up with something like tying it to wages of 2 people or something that they have, so that. If you're tying it to someone's wages. Or 2 people's, an average of their dispatchers or something. Then you could lock yourself in for, say, the next 10 years or something, instead of.
Like
Get it-
a certain percentage,
Right,
like your escalator.
yeah, if you if you get another commission in 3 years and then all of a sudden someone says, hey, I think that these guys should be paying 400, you know, and now you have to go through this all over, where if we could tie it to something to say, we don't need to do this all the time, put it in contract where it's not brought up to be a problem, but I don't know what that looks like.
That actually is a good idea. I mean, that's something that would be easy to budget for here too.
It would be easier to budget, and then if it's an average of their dispatchers, then whether it's 1 or 1.5 or 2 dispatchers, as they increase their paying, we're gonna have to pay a little bit more, but that prevents just a couple of commissioners coming in saying the city of Hiawatha needs to give us 400 grand. Yeah. Cause I've heard 1.5, I've heard 2, I don't really know what it is. Does anybody actually know what that agreement actually said?
The old one,
Yeah,
2.5.
said 2.5.
2.5. That's 2.5 dispatches. However they came up with that number, I have no clue, but that's what it said.
Does anybody know how many dispatchers they have now?
5 full-time, I believe it is 6. I don't know. I know 5. Maybe 6.
So if there's 2.5, we're paying for half of the dispatch versus we're only using 25. I mean, if 25 is the number, then that number should be reduced to 25% of it, basically. There's ways that you could,
I asked how many full-time positions, so these are the questions that I asked that I not had an answer to, and it's not, I don't wanna say that they're not answering my questions, that's not what I mean. But my question was, how many full-time dispatches do you think you need? That was the question that I had to John, the answer that I got was 8, and so that's where I came up with 2. However, and I think that was more of a coverage thing than anything. I don't know how I figured that, that's what he told me. My second question was, okay, well, if the city of Hiawatha did this, would you be using that money to fill those positions? And that's what it was. You know, that's a discussion between, you know, 2 governing bodies. I guess is a good way to put that. Is that correct, John? Is that how that conversation went when we were downstairs?
Sorry, not looking up. Payment statement.
Anyway.
What'd you say?
So when I was talking about dispatchers, I said, okay, well, how many dispatch positions do you need? John said 8. I said, if we did that, would you use that money to fill those additional positions?
I don't, well, I'm confused, why would they need to add 2 dispatchers if they're already doing all the dispatch for us?
That's what he told us.
Because he feels they're understaffed.
Okay. So they need 2 more today.
Just a quick search on the state, Department of Administration, the confirmed payments to Brown County for connecting links last year. There's 2 payments, one for $957,845.86, and another for $82,290. Did you say 950? 950.
That must be state money. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, KDOT pays it out, the connecting links.
Oh, for the connecting links,
Mhm.
950, and then the other one was 80.
957, 845.86, and 82, 290.36. So of that portion, you'd have,
For how, what, are there more?
that's just the total that Brown County got. So, I mean, you would have to
For the entire county.
look up the statute on the connecting links and see how many miles affects us versus, you know, yeah.
You'd
I
have
mean,
to
there's a little homework you'd have to.
You'd have to do the breakdown of that. We have rural secondary numbers, which is what these are. We have rural secondary numbers, and we'd have to see if they're getting the money attached to the rural secondary numbers. Which is what that connecting links is based off of. I think.
Correct.
I have a question on another topic, where we're at right here, but on the numbers we get from the county on projected ad valorem tax, do they tell us what the delinquency rate is, or how is that factored?
Normally, what I'm able to do is I'm able to calculate that off of what we budgeted as opposed to what we actually got in. What I normally see is about 45%.
How much?
45%.
45.
They
on
give us-
delinquency rate.
do they give us that on the treasures?
They do, normally it's lower, normally it's like
So
40%.
you subtract that off of whatever number they give you, but, and put it in the budget. Right?
Honestly, I really don't. There's a formula for that, yeah, that you can do. Normally, you project low on some things. You project what your ad valorem is, and you project low on some other things. Normally, the money will, it's kind of a wash at the end of the year, I guess is a good way to put it. Your budget, your revenue, you don't really fall short on revenues. Honestly, because sales taxes have been doing better, we've actually exceeded revenues in most of our, ad valorem funds.
I was just thinking about the tax sale they had. I don't know what the value of those properties is for how often that, as far as their property tax goes, but if those people haven't been paying any taxes for who knows how long.
Yeah.
I know you don't wanna stick your neck out,
Yeah.
and we're gonna get that money now, but.
And there is some of that, I know that, like, say, when you have delinquent taxes that are paid, that was a tough one to figure, because you just don't know what that's going to be. So there's a redemption distribution as well, that one's pretty tough to figure. And that's just for anybody that decided, I'm gonna pay my 10 years of taxes, then the city of Hiawatha is going to get their fortune with that. And so, sometimes it's significant, sometimes we don't get as much, but it just really wildly varies every year.
How much you've done so far this year.
I've already asked him this, and I don't think it'll make a lot of difference, but if those folks start mowing their yards, I think you told me that we mow all those properties.
Yeah, we have, yes.
Would that make any big difference on any of our budget items?
I mean, yeah, it's going to reduce some equipment maintenance and fuel for sure.
Probably not big numbers.
Probably not big numbers, but yeah, it will affect our budget. Couple thousand, I'd say, is probably what you're looking at there. All right, guys, it's almost 8 o'clock. Is everybody still okay? No, I mean, I asked that question, because, like I said, from the beginning, it was to start getting into this, going over a lot of numbers, but everybody can glaze over pretty quickly. It's just it's a lot of information at once, and so I understand that. At any time that, we're feeling that we're dragging this on too long, just let me know. I'll try to get through, like I said, the major part of what I want to get through tonight was really what affects our property tax. And,
Back to the redemption distribution.
Sure.
Just a second. just
so
'cause I
do you
wanna-
want to, like the admin?
I'm just gonna. Of course, the redemption distribution, that's the money we collect from delinquent taxes.
Yes,
And, I'm just telling you what, it's always gonna be more the year they have a tax sale, because people are trying to get out for losing their. However, this year we have collected $14,600 in redemption, so that's
okay, so
back taxes.
which we budgeted to, so.
But that's overall, that's across. Fund and interest, employee benefits, recreation, industrial, all of the levy tax, so library. The general has collected 5,277.
And so, kind of summarizing what I've done here so far, and really, I feel a lot better about where we're sitting at financially than I did 2 weeks ago. But I was really trying to figure it out a couple weeks back. I think that we got a kind of good thing going here right now. Like I said, I'll run through the rest of the funds really quickly for you. I don't have anything right now that doesn't balance out, so. As I go through these with the department heads, we'll have to get another one if our desire is to stay revenue neutral, that does. Up our timeline just a little bit, not really, I mean. It doesn't really matter, I think that we have to have our budget done by August,
Oh. I had it pulled up.
like adopted by, there's a date, it's not October.
Budget timeline. We have to, by June 15th, the county clerk will, give us our assessed property valuation estimates. July 20th is the last day to notify the county clerk of intent to levy above the R&R, and you have to let them know if you're going to or not. So if these haven't changed, because these are the ones I had last year, I couldn't find it on the administration's website, but August 20th through September 20th, hold your R&R hearing. If you're going to no, hold the budget hearing. Publication of hearing must be done 10 days prior to the R&R hearing. Publish in newspaper and website, August 20th, September 20th, hold your budget hearing. Okay, yes, you have to hold your R&R hearing, then your budget hearing. Between August 20th and October 1st, the governing body passes resolution to exceed R&R. That's only if you're going to exceed the revenue neutral. If we stay revenue neutral and do not want to, by August 4th, we have to publish our notice of hearing. August 15th, we have to by August 15th, we have to hold the budget hearing. And we have to formally adopt the budget between August 15th and August 25th.
So, not a problem. I mean, so if the, desires to stay revenue neutral, you know, that's a timeline down the road.
So we need to find out from the library and have this accounting thing taken care of, because that's the only two hiccups right now.
And so really, like I said, if we want to meet our July 1st deadline, you know, if the county have that figured out, have that hammered out, I mean, I think that we're looking pretty good right now. As far as what we're looking at, you know, staying revenue control. And so, like I said, I feel much better about things. I'm actually pretty positive about this. Because what I've done here is not, we can still plan for those things that we did last year. So really, like I said, my whole point of last year's budget was not to have big wild swings up and down. You know, I wanted to make sure that we're budgeting appropriately for vehicle replacements, you know, other things that we might possibly need. And so that's vehicle replacements, that's throughout funds too. You know, I'm not having to cut this out of public works, so I'm not putting nearly as much in from street budget, from water budget, from sewer budget. We don't need those vehicles quite as often, so we're putting in much lower amounts, but I haven't cut anything out. Yeah, so that's why I have this feeling good right now. I believe that we're able to meet our goals within the confines of the money that we have now. And still move forward with what we need to do. And so that, like I said, this is why, you know, I guess I'm pretty bullish, I guess you could say, on the 2027 budget right now. I was pretty, feeling pretty bad about it 2 weeks ago. You probably got from my email. Special highway, you know, it does affect us a little bit, you know, the salary is about 40,000. And so you're still looking at being able to put, you know, over $100,000 towards the roads every year. This is totally off of absent sales tax that was enacted in 1980. And the money that we get from the Special City and County Highway Fund, that comes from the state of Kansas. And so that's money that we get that's just distributed to us. And so that's how it's funded. Debt service is a tax levy fund, but we do not levy taxes for debt service. This is really just money in, money out. So your expenditures and your revenue should always match. And so we're always transferring money into debt service to pay for debt service. And so, you know, like I said, that one's pretty easy. We don't actually levy taxes for that. We have all of our, you know, these are all the bonds that we currently have. 2012, 2014, 2021, and where that's coming from. So 100% sewer, lots of sewer, water. Now we have Series 2025, which is part water, that's also part special street. And so that'd be concrete streets, so that's what it's in. But we have a good idea about all that. Once again, we don't levy taxes for that. Land bank doesn't really have a budget. We don't have it. If we sell 2 properties that we have, we won't have any properties in the land bank. MDE inspection, You know, these are all pretty small funds that we go through. Criminal asset forfeiture, we haven't done anything with this, a Wild History Center. This is what we're in, this is what we're in right now. We have revenue from the trust fund. This is the housekeeping that I was talking about, it's down here. You know, we budgeted for that elevator upgrade. You know, something else that we need to look at once again for this next year. Historical Society distribution, if you notice, you know, we don't actually distribute anything to it. But once again, this is money that's distributed to us from the trust. And so it's money that's meant for the museum that's up here, but they haven't been doing the exhibits. That's why we haven't been doing it. The money's still there for them because it's not our money. I mean, we're not, this is essentially it's not taxpayer money that we're, you know, giving out. This is money that comes from the trust. This is Post Lantern, once again, roughly $92,000 is what we have in capital. Whatever we spent this year, we'll have a good idea on it. And we'll just, you know, take the fund balance down, and it'll just keep going down until it's zero, and then it's done. And then we're done with Post Lantern altogether. Water treatment plant is done. Stormwater, you know, we bring in roughly about $79,000 a year. The stormwater expenses. So that's the money that we have, or revenue, that's the money that we have for actual stormwater, you know, expenses, whatever that may be. And so curb and gutter, stormwater projects that we have plenty of them around town right now. With the rain that we had, it really exposed some weaknesses that we have in town that we need to budget for. We can use part of that money for curb and gutter. We can use part of that money, that's what we've been doing. We can use part of that money to finish some stormwater projects that we have. Pool, once again, pool is one of those funds that, you know, no matter what you do, you know, your revenues here, 117,750. Your expenses are 143,914. You budget for transfers in this one, you actually never hit your expenditure on that one, just because you don't know what that one is going to do. Lately, we haven't been able to have the pool open because we don't have those expenses. Therefore, we don't have the revenues either, but normally our expenses vastly outpace revenues of money for our pool. And so, like I said, we never actually meet our one, you know, 143,914 as far as our actual expenses go. You know, there's just a lot to go to. And so you budget your transfers coming out and going into the pool, then you just make it even at the end of the year. So you don't actually transfer more than what you need. And so that's how the pool has worked, pool capital, pool codes. Water, once again, you know, I've actually kind of pulled back a little bit on our revenue because I don't know. I don't have enough time yet to really look and see what we're doing here. As far as our projected revenues for sales to customers goes, there's still time to change this. I pulled back on it a little bit as far as the revenues go. Once again, you do it all the way down through the expenses. And we, you know, right now I have this positive 16,000. I need to go through this with Ryan and see where he's at with his budget. Once again, you know, we're balancing here. Sewer expenses, same thing. You know, we actually have been meeting revenues here, so I'm not concerned about that. Our salaries are a little bit higher just to accommodate for this. Moving those down a little bit out of administration, like I said. You know, we have our EV maintenance in there. We still have a healthy amount for equipment maintenance. And right now I have us, you know, right at $1,000, but we also have quite a bit going towards capital reserve as well. And so that's a number that Bruce and I will work through. These numbers are likely to change a little bit, but I really want in these funds and the kind of want, you know, the utility funds, you know, we're looking for balance on these. We're looking for our expenditures to meet our revenues. And so that's what we look at here. The last fund, the major fund that we have is the airport fund. We don't get a lot of money in the airport. We have about 28,815 coming in every year as far as revenues go. Expenditures, you know, should meet revenue roughly on that one. But this last year, I made a mistake with the budget. This last year, did not do that for expenditures. That's not necessarily a big deal as long as we're not outpacing our revenue. But we have about 24,709 as far as our expenditures go. Airport. And so that's
fine, go over here.
that goes to whatever expenses that we have with airport.
So it goes back to.
It goes back to. And so any money that we collect there has to be used for the airport. So that's kind of just a quick overview of it. We don't have a lot of money coming in from the airport, but it's or a lot of expenditures, but that's what it's for. And so really, that's kind of what we're looking at here. As far as the rest of those funds, I know I was trying to look through this quickly. You know, we'll probably dive a little bit deeper into those as the budget comes into focus. But I just wanted to get this in front of everybody tonight, get your thoughts. Pretty confident now we're staying revenue neutral. I kind of had that figured in anyway. We already had those conversations past. You know, as far as what we have available to accommodate for that, I feel pretty good about it. And so I don't know, leave it up to any questions that you'll have, then we can get out of here.
What did you have in there for, we haven't decided on our software?
We have not decided on that, and I haven't cut that out of there yet. I have that coming out of a capital improvement fund. And so what I've done, if you remember last year, once again, in order to accommodate, instead of like saying we're gonna spend of our budget 150,000 this year or 125 on the budget. We're gonna reimburse $25,000. I haven't cut that out of there at this time. I didn't feel like there was a need to with the numbers that I was looking at. It still gives us room to look at our software and see what we have coming in, but I want to make sure that any money that we're spending out of our CIP fund that we're reimbursing into.
And we do have money going into CIP,
We have plenty budgeted for that.
and how much is that? 25,000, but if we spend 150.
But we have money in the CIP to accommodate for that, we just need to,
Right.
You're saying,
we just need to reimburse that.
that's not.
How about the yearly maintenance?
It's not a switch, no, but in order to keep the budget from going, you know, having massive swings up and down, I try to do something to make it even.
How about the maintenance fee for our software? You have that? That didn't come out of the CIP, didn't
And
it?
it's not coming out of CIP, like this comes out of our normal budget, it's $39,000 a year is what we pay for G-Works now. And when I looked into that, that's split up over the funds. And so that usually comes out of miscellaneous fees, or I can't remember which one.
It was 25, is it 30?
39,
It's
That's what we pay now?
yes.
For G-Works.
And then, okay, no, then the other one is 25,000,
That's-
so it's actually cheaper than it would be.
That's
correct.
Um,
A BSNA.
BSNA.
That's what it is.
Yeah, that's what it is.
There's a
Um,
cost of everything, and we're
Right.
looking into
A little bit
what
more.
was, I know we did get one quote on Uniqlo, it was
26,000.
26,000.
That's a one-time cost, I don't know.
And
Oh, there was a
There was a pay,
a yearly maintenance, I think it was $1,400.
yeah, it was.
and I have that, but we still need to look into it.
And so really what we're looking into, you know, our IT system, things like that. And so, like I said, that's what I've done with the CIP fund. I don't want to draw it down to a point where we're uncomfortable. There's a couple things that I want to bring up, you know, throughout our, this budget season that I think are good things to talk about. One of them, setting an actual, like, a reserve policy, like, that says that, you know, normally, when cities do this, they'll say that they want like a 30% reserve in any one fund in order to accommodate for anything that could go wrong, bad times, downturns in the economy, whatever it might be. I'd like to see something like that with the city of Hiawatha. Currently, we don't have one. Some of our funds are doing very well. I mean, some of our funds, we have 100% reserve. You know, but if we set a reserve policy, I think it's a responsible thing to do. And it just keeps, you know, like say, future commissions, and I guess they can always change it, but, you know, it's something that they would have to look at, I mean, but it just keeps them from spending that, from drawing that money down the sea. And that's really the last thing we want to do. Is get it to where we don't have capital reserves. That's where, you know, cities can really get into a lot of trouble with I like to look at a reserve policy sometime this year. That can come into focus while we're going through the rest of the budget, but like I said, anybody have any other questions?
I'd like to see a car and equipment audit of some kind, whether it's every 3 months or something. Mileage on police cars, hours on all of our equipment, and, I mean, last year we had $100,000 skid loader that we budgeted for, and we didn't buy it, so did we really need it? That's $100,000, so. We lost a cop car and nobody even knew about it. It'd just be really nice to have something showing. We've got 3 cop cars with 150,000 miles, or. It's just information is key. The more we inform everybody.
It definitely helps, that would help, you know, budgetary to know, when we've got, how many, last time that we spoke about the police department, we had discussed cutting that position and cutting patrol cars. Because we had, how many patrol cars? How many do we have right now, chief?
That's a good question. I couldn't answer that question. Thank you. That's all.
Yes, we had talked about cutting that position for sure, but like I said earlier, from the discussions that I've had with the chief on some of the areas that we're really trying to accomplish here, especially the one with code enforcement and keeping up everything else that we do with the city. We, I don't think that we feel like cutting that position is something that we have to do. Budgetarily, I don't see a reason that we need to do it. I haven't, like I said, we haven't filled that position just because I figured that throughout the budget discussion, this would come up.
I'm gonna see that money go for vehicles in that position. I mean, if we've got several patrol cars,
See, and I'm opposite, I'd rather see it go to personnel as opposed to patrol cars.
We already-
I'd like to give the chief a chance to get in and.
We also already do budget $30,000 a year for vehicle replacement. And so it's something that we do budget. Like I said, it was something that I knew would come up. This is why we haven't filled that position.
Well, that's something we need to do for budget. And get all the cars that we have, all the mileage. All of them. Anything with wheels, have it on a list and have hours and. I mean, if you guys have a piece of equipment that's sitting down there for 6 months, not moving. We need to start looking at moving stuff. There's just no. Stuff appreciates whether it's making money or not, so.
I don't know, when I look at the position. At one point in time, we discussed cutting 2 positions at the police department, not just Janet's, but.
Well, we did cut two.
We did. We never budgeted that for the SRO position. That's one of them.
Was that on a grant though?
It was, but that one was, I can't explain that one because this happened before my time. But you budgeted for that position as if you were paying it full time. And so when we cut that position,
The school reimbursed.
the school reimbursed
us.
but still we had,
Certain amount.
Yeah, I don't remember.
but
30.
still we
I don't-
had to budget for that position as if that was a full-time position for the city, which affected the property tax of every citizen of this town. And so, even though we're getting reimbursed for it, when you're talking about salaries, anything that has a 10 number in front of it, that's going to be affected by, the property, that'll affect the property. And so when we cut that position out of it, that effectively got rid of it, which saved that money out of the property tax, if it makes sense. I mean, it's just how it had to be set up, but that's how it was done. That one's been cut, that one's not coming back. There's no desire to bring that position or go out. I suppose if they ever want to go after another grant, they could, the school or the county or even the city could. But, we don't have any desire to do that at this time. Duty Shoemaker has been filling that position and doing a fine job doing it. So we just don't have any need for that right now. The Janet's position is the one that we're really discussing. Since she's been retired February, and we have not filled that one.
And why, Chief, exactly, what are your thoughts on filling her position?
No, I
And
think,
Brad went over it just a little bit, but.
yeah, based upon the numbers that we have and everything, I think it's imperative that you can fill that. As I mentioned before, I told you, our ability to do training is thwarted right now. There's a lot of areas in the department that we need to catch up in training, that have not been taken care of for several years. And all these areas are critical areas for high liability issues that affect the city if we don't get the appropriate training. That's a critical issue, and the way we are right now, we're hot seating cars and hot seating people in and out of the door. We have very little time to do any of that unless we send them off to a class, and then you know having shortages of people doing that. So it's kind of a lose-lose no matter what you do. And we do have that mandatory 40 hours that we're required to do just basic training, but still, nevertheless, send somebody to a class. So I need some core training. The basic stuff to be able to demonstrate that, you know, those things that for de-escalation and firearms training and armed self-defense training, things that are really going to get us in trouble if we don't do this well, as far as an organization in the city. So that's why we speak about that and filling that position.
To avoid overtime,
But also,
when you send people off to training.
sure.
To avoid overtime and.
That plus just meet our basic training requirements, things that we need to do.
Sure.
Well, we're trying to make up for a little bit of stuff that's been put off, and as we're starting to suffer, I can see that. Taking folks out to the range and whatnot, seeing exactly what they can do, and they can't do. And, there's some areas where we definitely need to work on. But also, not to beat the dead horse, but de-escalation is a key component in every lawsuit when you have a use of force. If you don't have a program, well, we don't, so we're gonna do that. And I'm saying folks to that court, that we have to turn around and provide that training to folks. If we don't do that, then it's having a program without actually affecting that program is inconsequential. And, really stepping up the code thing, because, as Chad is going to be focusing on building permitting and major code stuff, all that nuisance stuff that he's been laboring at for these several months or whatever is gonna fall to us. We're, you know, preparing our folks to do this and putting the task upon them. Well, you gotta have people who can do that to be able to hit those spots and do those works that we need to do. Because there's clearly some areas that are need to take care of right now.
You have a pretty young group out there too.
Sure.
So we've got quite a few relatively new officers that could benefit from more training.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I didn't want to bring this up, but I guess I shall. We have one of our officers who's probably going to be going off to the Navy very shortly. And when he leaves, that leaves us a huge board in our graveyard shift. So I'm going to be hammering to grab somebody quickly and get them in. But we still have a training process, a full training process. And we certainly don't want to shortchange the full training process to try to throw somebody in the seat. That's exactly what we've done for the last 2 people. We don't want to go down that path.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I'm great.
But
It's a state.
yeah.
I did.
Well, I didn't remember that.
Didn't think about it.
I carried around Coach Brew, I paid $16 for it at the airport.
Here, get her in.
I had it in my bag in about 12 hours, so I can beat that tonight.
Like, here's the vote first. We need a motion to adjourn.